Alrighty, we're all ready.
All right. All right, everybody, welcome. Thank you for showing up. Today is October 1st, 2020. This is our first meeting in October. Just a little housekeeping. Any attendees, I see 18 of you. If you call in and want to participate and are calling in, not appearing via Zoom, you'll need to push *9 in order to raise your hand. I will need to unmute you. This goes for attendees as well before you speak. So if I'm a little slow on the draw, I apologize. Sometimes I do that and it doesn't flow as well as it should normally. With that, Catherine, could you please call a roll? There we go.
Thank you. Willman?
You're unmuted, Tony. You're unmuted, Charlie.
Oh, I wasn't. Oh, here.
Voorhees?
Go.
Cope?
Sorry. Okay, go ahead.
Here.
Godus?
Here.
Davis?
Here.
Stepp?
Yes.
Hershey?
Tony, your audio is kind of quiet. Could you say something else?
Is this better, Jonathan?
It is, yeah.
Okay, sorry.
No worries.
It's the headphone thing.
Oh, gotcha. Okay. Okay. I'll lead everybody now with a Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag
of the United
States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. All right, next item, agenda changes and conflicts. Are there any agenda changes that anybody has for this evening? We did move, just for people who looked at the agenda earlier in the week, we did move what was going to be a work session onto the regular agenda, and that is the item number, I believe it's item number 11. It's the first thing after consent agenda, Aspen Valley Land Trust presentation. So that's the only thing that's changed since earlier in the week. Any other changes or any conflicts of interest? All right. Seeing none, citizens appearing before council. This is for anybody to speak their mind. Please give your name and address, and you have 3 minutes. You can speak on anything in the community that you would like to. So again, if you've called in, it's *9. Cassandra Irving.
Hi, everyone. My name's Cassandra Irving. I live at 405 Highland Park Drive. I am the executive director of Game On Camps. We're a local sports nonprofit based here in Glenwood. And I'm here to advocate for our young athletes in our city, specifically to be allowed to compete outdoors in a mask-free environment. And I'm asking council to consider granting Game On Camps a permit to use Sayre Park for our championship outdoor basketball tournament next weekend. Coaches and spectators obviously would be masked, but our athletes would not. And the question that a lot of people have been asking is, why should Game On be allowed to do this? And so, I just want to give some information to you guys. So as you make a decision, you may be just a bit more informed of what's been going on here for the last 3 months. Since this summer, we've had over 175 youth athletes from all over the Western Slope competing mask-free outdoors and have not had one case of COVID. And really, this is why we're asking for our athletes to be the exception to the rule. And I'm going to tell you a little bit about why we have been able to stay so healthy and COVID-free. But first, just briefly, I want to express some gratitude to your team. First of all, for Brian Smith and Yvette Baker, who, as part of Parks and Rec, really helped us launch our sports programming this summer and supported its growth as far as they could. And Deborah, our town manager, when the county announced a couple weeks ago that they were going to be introducing additional restrictions on outdoor athletes. Deborah really kept the conversations diplomatic and just a real spirit of kindness. So we really appreciate that. And also Mayor Godis, thanks so much for taking my call. I just know that you are open to a change of course, so long as, you know, new information and data merit. So I really appreciate that. And finally, Council, I just want to encourage you that, you know, what unites Game On in the city is far greater than what divides us. We are a key player in the upcoming renovation of Sayre Park. We are one of the largest cash donators to the project, and we are pursuing other conversations with other sports groups like the Grizzly to do other big projects like indoor ice rinks. So regardless of what what decision happens here today, we are committed to just partnering with the city in the long term. But it really does come back to that question, you know, why should you guys like Game On do this? And, you know, besides just our COVID-free track record, you know, our athletes represent a very unique part of our population. It's a very unique demographic. Not only are they young, which puts them in a more resistant category to the virus, but they are athletes, and athletes tend to eat better, sleep better, train, you know, physical exercise, and have stronger immune systems generally than their peers. And even more than that, Game On's athletes have a very specific focus on sports nutrition. And so, you know, we have just seen some incredible results just because of that focus of keeping our immune system strong, reducing sugar content, increasing plants and vegetables, getting good sleep, all of that kind of thing. And so we are just asking that you consider for next weekend offering us the permit for Sayre Park. We have worked really hard to address some of the concerns Brian had originally just with crowd control. We have better processes and policies in place on that. I think you guys are going to be very happy just with how we monitor and reduce the numbers of people who are watching.
Cassandra, sorry, your 3 minutes is up. Can you finish your last thoughts?
Yes, so just in conclusion, I really appreciate you guys just taking some time to reconsider this issue. We have people who are awaiting this decision from all over the county and all over the Western Slope, just curious to see what you guys will decide. We are gonna, of course, finish our league no matter what, but it would just be so great to come home to Glenwood and have the glory go to Glenwood Springs.
Thank you, Cassandra. Dendi.
Oh, I gotta unmute. Can you hear me now?
Yes.
Okay. Thank you, Mayor Godis, and thank you, Council, and thank you, Parks and Rec also. I, like Cassandra, would like to advocate for our youth to be able to play outdoors, mask-free. That they did that for quite some time safely, like Cassandra said, this summer, and we just so appreciate her efforts to promote the physical and mental health of our students. She gives wonderful leadership opportunities to students and mentoring in addition to the athletic opportunities. And so I cannot say enough good about her programming for the youth of this city. You know, somebody said something in the school board meeting last week that really stuck with me, and it's kind of my new mantra for this time. They said, you know, we are asking our youth to bear a disproportionate burden of this public health concern with COVID. And I really feel that's true. And I feel like to the extent that we can grant exceptions for kids, again, because they are a lower risk population, and because they do have needs for physical activity, for socialization, for athletic development, for academic development, that we really try to stretch ourselves and do as much as we possibly can for our youth. And this would be one of the great things that we could do. So like Cassandra said, I think we all recognize that, you know, crowd control might be handled better. And Cassandra definitely has already been putting the word out to those of us who are parents, spectators, coaches, all that, like, you know, about how we really do need to observe safety protocols. I think everyone's very prepared to do that and very committed to that. We want to play by the rules, and we want to respect, you know, the decisions you guys are making, and we want to respect everyone's safety. We want to keep everyone safe and healthy. So we just would ask that you give us another chance in Glenwood and let our kids play at home next weekend, like Cassandra said. That's all I have. Thank you.
Thanks, Cindy. Appreciate it.
Thank you.
Ann O'Brien,
Hi, can y'all hear me?
we can.
Hi, okay, my name is Ann O'Brien. I live in Carbondale. I am a mother and a kids Aikido teacher, and I saw Cassandra here in the park here, I believe, or somebody from the same company, and a mutual friend sent me this meeting today. And I just also agree with Cassandra. I feel that children are at extremely low risk. I've done a lot of research on this, and as I understand it, the COVID is lower risk than the flu, especially for children. It's minuscule. And my concern is what this is doing to our kids psychologically, what this is doing to them not being able to breathe freely. And when you're working out, you really need that oxygen, and just not being able to see faces, not being able to interact on a human level, I think is way more damaging than the chance of COVID. So I agree. And that's all I need to say. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. O'Brien. Deborah.
Let me just briefly catch council up on this, because you guys don't typically approve permits for parks. This permit was approved in June. There was miscommunication on both sides. Where the state lands on contact sports like this is it is highly discouraged. When for you not to wear masks during contact sports, where the county public health department landed was they said, you guys can decide to do it, but we will not support you in it, and we do not recommend it. So, we educated Game On Camps on this. Staff does not support we support them playing, absolutely, but we support them playing with guidelines, and unfortunately those guidelines are masks. So I know it's very unfortunate. It is upsetting for the kids in this game and the parents, but that is where staff falls on this. We're going to follow the best guidelines we have from the state and county public health. Does that help?
Yes. This is comments right now from citizens. So let me take the rest of citizens' comments, and then I think if anybody has any input to staff or direction that they would like to give staff in light of this information, I'll take it after the rest of public comment. So anybody else for public comment? Okay. All right, counselors, anybody wish to give staff direction or suggestions beyond what they have given to Game On Camps? Tony, is that a hand up? Okay, yes. Go ahead.
Oh, thank you. I just asked Mr. Mayor if the city manager could look into this. I think it's an important issue, and we got an email today. I think some of you did, and I know you've been attending the school board meetings. It's a big issue between balancing safety and then allowing kids to do what they want to do. I also highly recommend last night's South Park episode, which dealt with this issue in a funny way, but with kids like in a true way too, with like Kyle not being able to enjoy life anymore. There's a balance. So if Brian and Deborah could look into this a little bit more and check with the state and what the limits are, I would appreciate it. Thank you.
Thanks, Tony. And my understanding is the staff has checked into the state and just, Deborah, correct me if I'm wrong, the state highly discourages it. County has said they would not do it. That's who we've relied on for advice. And they've made the determination to not allow it without masks. Now, my understanding is if there is masks employed, that they are more than welcome to do that. Is that correct, Deborah?
Yes, and what Garfield County Public Health really indicated to us was we could decide we were our own public health agency, which we are not. I do not have public health staff. So that is not it is not something I can just make up. right? I have to follow expert advice, and the expert advice we got is not to hold this activity. Garfield County gave this advice to all their other municipalities. Contact sports, I mean, the school district is not playing football, and I don't think any school districts in Garfield County are playing football this fall. But it's just, it is not a direction I'm comfortable in going, and understand if we make this exception, you'll be making it for all contact sports. You know, then we'll have to have maskless ice hockey and everything else that everyone wants to do. And I know it's not fair. There is nothing fair about the pandemic. And I'm just so sorry.
All right, Steve Davis. There you go.
Are you unmuting me and I'm muting me? And are
I'm
you
just-
mute? Are you the muter or am I?
That is, I think if there's a term techno drunk, Steve would be it. Steve, you're if you can hear us, your connection's really.
But I unmute.
Yes, you are unmuted correctly now, but our ability to hear you because your bandwidth is compromised.
Oh, it is. You can't hear me then?
Right now we can actually.
Oh. All right. Well, I just want to say that I think that these activities are very important, and I wish we could all get back to normal, but it's been my understanding that it's not about the city of Glenwood Springs. It's about the governor's office. And I don't want it to be put onto our plate to make decisions like that. I think we need to depend on the governor's office, and whatever he says goes. We live in the state of Colorado.
Thank you, Steve. Councilor Voorhees.
I think Councilor Davis is right.
You're
That
good.
once you start making one exception, you'll be making exceptions all over the place that are contra to what the state has decided. I'd love to be able to just rip off the mask and kind of get back to normal, but all of the data that we look at and the reporting that we have says that we're still nowhere near conquering this thing. And I'd feel terrible if someone from out of town comes in and suddenly we have a COVID problem, or someone here unknowingly passes it on to someone else. You know, I just don't think it's a risk that the city can take right now. Thank you.
All right. Thank you, Rick. Unless there's somebody that feels strongly that we should overrule staff's direction, I think you've had probably enough comments or silence on it, Deborah, that your and Brian's direction on this probably stands. I will take the overwhelming cascade of silence as agreement on that statement. Okay. Thank you, Cassandra. Thank you, Dendy. Yeah, there's just really not a whole lot to say that is going to be good or happy. Cassandra, Game on Campus is fantastic. We appreciate you guys. We appreciate the help with Sayre Park. We think you guys are great. And I know kids working out in masks is not, like I've said to you, I wouldn't do it. So I understand if that precludes you from bringing your camps to Glenwood. I get it. It's not ideal. All right, moving on. I saw some other hands go up on the public's hands, but we've closed public comment now. We did leave it open for as long as we really could, so I apologize. And usually we always allow people to only give one comment, and then we respond or not. And so I saw Dendy and Cassandra's hands go back up, but that's just the way public comment works. I'm sorry. Okay, next thing on the agenda is council comments. Councilor Voorhees.
myself. There we go. Can you hear me?
We can.
Okay. So last meeting, I announced that my term would end on October 15th, and things have changed since then. Tonight will be my last meeting with you, with regret. I appreciate the chance to work with all of you and to serve the community. So thank you very much.
Thanks, Rick. Charlie.
Rick, I will miss you, as I mentioned last week. It's been a delight sitting next to you for the last year and a half, or sitting next to you virtually in the last 6 months. And I'm going to miss your insight and input into the council. I fully understand and appreciate your decision to be with your family, and I'm glad you're there and enjoying your grandchildren. Not being here, some of mine who are in New York, I fully understand that. So we're going to miss you, and thank you for your service to the city. You've done a great job, and I want to start out there. So I have some other comments, but I don't know if anybody else wants to comment about Rick first.
Let's do that. Paula.
Rick, it's going to be tough to see you go. I mean, I know you only had a few short months, and I didn't know if you were running for re-election, but I do have to say you got the strategic plan done. Thank you for leading us on that. And let's see what's up next in your future. Don't forget to come back to this town and visit us.
Thanks, Paula. Shelley.
Hi, Rick. Well, yeah, I'm sorry to hear that this will be a last meeting. It's certainly been great working with you, and appreciated your wisdom and your leadership, your thoughtfulness, and I think where you're going, Santa Fe, will be lucky to have you there. And I'm sure you'll step into some kind of a leadership role there. So appreciate all you've done for Glenwood Springs, and enjoy your time off. Thanks.
Deborah.
I just wanted to say thank you so much, Rick. You've been wonderfully supportive to all staff and visionary, and we're gonna miss you.
I'll go. Rick, I thought we'd have maybe one more meeting where I could get something a little more eloquent than this off the cuff. But I tell you, you're a warrior, and boy, you know, we really appreciate your intelligence and your thoughtfulness and your compassion. You've brought things before us way before they became popular, like mask mandates. You were incredibly supportive on the vaping conversation. You've always looked out for the public health. You've always looked out for the welfare of the citizens, and you always ask who's going to get hurt the most and who's this going to help the most. And I think that's a great way that you have framed a lot of our conversations, and I'm going to miss that. You're a giant, you're a warrior, and you and Alice, I think you've lived here for 12 years, and you guys have both given so much to the community. Alice with the library district and other things, and this community is going to be worse off because of you and your wife not being here, and whatever community that you're moving to has won the lottery. And so I know you're going to jump in with both feet there as well. And I hope to see you at a big conference in a couple of years when you're a city council person in your next town. So thank you, Rick. It's been a pleasure and an honor. Tony.
I was muted, sorry. You can hear me?
Yes.
Okay. You know, I think Condoleezza Rice said there's no greater challenge and there is no greater honor than to be in public service. And whether you agree or disagree with another person, you can't fault someone for putting themselves in the public arena and doing that. So thank you very much.
Oh, this is really nice.
What's that?
Well, hold on. That was very nice you said that, Tony.
Oh, I thought you said you were going to give him a plaque or something.
Well, no. Hold on a sec. This, I don't know if we can see this. I'm putting up. This is something that somehow just got, it's backwards, but it says, "Thank you, Rick." And it's on my phone and it was texted to me. Anyway, Rick will, I'm sure, have other opportunities this evening to grill you, harass you, and thank you as well. I guess I'll bring it back around to other council comments. Your night's not over yet. Go ahead. Shelley, your hand is up. Did you want to re-raise it for additional comments not related to the departure of our dear friend, Dr. Voorhees?
I did. I just wanted to make a comment in general about the mask wearing and our continued mandate and how difficult it is for everybody. I've coined a term that I've shared with friends lately. I'm just in this land of kind of COVID crabby. I think everybody's over it. They're ready to move on. But the reality is, you know, the US still has higher death rates and higher transmission rates than a lot of the rest of the world. And we continue to see spread even as we go into flu season, which we're being warned could be very serious on infection. And I feel for parents of kids, and having raised 3 boys in this town, you know, they like to be outside and they want to be outside and doing sports and contact sports. And unfortunately, the reality we live in, if it's contact sport, there needs to be a mask. Otherwise, I encourage all parents, get your kids outside, get them out on the trails, get them out on their bikes, get them out in places where they can still do social distancing and not have to wear a mask, and get as much outdoor activity as possible. It's a trying time for all of us, but unfortunately, if kids get infected, it may not be high risk to them, but it's high risk to their teachers and to their families and their elders. And we have to respect that. So I just encourage the whole community to hang in there, and we're all in this together. We need to get through it, but we want to be safe going into flu season, especially. Get your flu shot, and let's hope that the fall is not as bad, fall and winter, as we're being warned. Thanks.
Thanks, Shelley. Charlie.
Thanks. I echo what Shelley said. I support staff in they're following what the governor's orders are. And I think we have to do that. And I read the same email I think you all got from one of the mothers of a student in the school, and very empathetic that I don't have school age kids anymore, but the kids that I know, some are succeeding at a limited level in online school, and I just hope that we get kids back in school soon too, and support the school district in their difficult decisions. But I sure do understand the difficulty for people with young children, or particularly high school kids who I never sat still then. I don't sit still now, but I didn't do it then for sure, and I fully understand that. Moving on to mundane business. We received an email from the people who support the slowdown in Glenwood about the sign. I talked to Deborah about this, and my understanding is the sign can only be up for 14 days in location. However, I also understand that, and Deborah, correct me if I'm wrong, that we've waived the sign code for merchants, commercial merchants, to the end of this month. And if we extend that, then the sign, the go take a minute sign, it could be in Beltis Park for a longer period of time. While I think a take a minute issue is important, I also think it's very important that we extend the sign waiver for the merchants, because they need to be able to get people in their businesses. We need to continue to support businesses. We're just beginning to look at how difficult that the restaurant business in particular is going to be. And I think some level of the retail business, such as Steve's and others, are going to be very difficult in the winter, keeping that social distancing without people who will be outside and stuff. So I would like to direct the council and direct Deborah to extend that. I don't know what period of time Deborah may have a suggestion, but extend the waiver of the sign code for merchants, and see if council agrees with me on that.
Go ahead, Deborah.
I believe, and someone can correct me if I'm wrong, you guys, under an emergency order, waived portions of the sign code through the end of October. I think it's something you can consider doing while, everyone is really struggling. You guys just have to understand the repercussions that you're probably okay dealing with whenever you waive the sign code. So, political signs, issues like that, they're just more difficult to regulate, or we can't regulate them. But, in my opinion, it is probably worth dealing with some of those sign issues to help our businesses right now. And, that would also allow take a minute sign to stay up longer, if that is what council desires.
Deborah, before you go mute, I believe it's about a year ago that we authorized or allowed the Take a Minute campaign, or contributed even to it. And I know the Transportation Commission has contributed some funds to it as well. I've seen the signs around for the last year. Was there a time limit on when we approved it a year ago, or was it kind of like you can just keep them up forever? And what are we being asked for as far as, we can probably waive the sign code for merchants and not for political signs. Can we treat those signs? No, we can't, says our legal attorney. So we, I guess I have a couple questions. One, what was the end date of that original Take a Minute campaign? Was there one in your knowledge or understanding?
From what I remember, what you guys did was you agreed to a resolution of support. So you kind of said you're all in on Take a Minute. And then we used, I'm going to say, street dollars upon the suggestion of the Transportation Commission to help design the Take a Minute logo. So we've been, the city has been supporting the entire initiative from the very beginning. And I think we think it is useful and helpful, and CDOT was very excited about it as well. But I don't think there was a time frame on that. I think when you waived the sign code, we just started leaving up a big banner longer. And I think when you signed on the resolution, I allowed Take a Minute, like campaign style signs, to be on City Hall for a while, because you guys were so behind it, which typically we don't do.
And so, and maybe this, sorry to hijack. Go ahead, Charlie.
I'm sorry. Oh, I was going to comment. I think I see, Stop Big Thompson signs that have been up probably for 4 or 5 years in some places in town. There might even be some other anti-mine signs, for instance, have been up for a while. I think we need to be careful as we talk about this issue. Carl's good way in legally, but I think the issue is that I'm trying to address is the one for commercial, and I appreciate Deborah's saying that there's ramifications. I think we need to think about those, and that's what we ask her to do, is tell us about the ramifications. But there are a lot of sides to step for a long time.
Well, and I guess my other question for Carl or maybe Jen as well would be, if this does apply to political signs, then we waived our sign code. Did we do it in its entirety? So somebody put a massive elect whoever, because we have 30 days until a large election, obviously. And then we also have like 60, 80 or 90 days before a city election. So Carl, can you talk a little bit about that?
Yeah, I think that is the unintended consequence. It's become very clear that, you can't differentiate on content on the signs. Size, placement, materials typically are what you can regulate. So there are some big unintended consequences when we waive sections of the sign code, because it's not with speech, you can't choose which one you like or don't like by category anymore, really. Used to be that there were some differentiations in commercial and other speech, but it's all kind of there together now. So the good news is I think the citizens have been pretty good about this, and I think recognize that this relaxation is really about trying to help our businesses. So.
And if we relax the size of the signs, because I've seen some pretty large political signs recently, and I didn't know if that was part of our code.
Yeah, well, I think that I'm trying to remember anywhere in town that we've had a size issue on political signs. Most of those are out in the unincorporated county, if I remember correctly, which is a whole different thing. And maybe,
Well, Catherine may be able to weigh in on that, because I know I had this question when I was running for election, how big was Sonic, but or maybe Jen, I saw she just popped in. So it seemed to me there is some limit on the size of signs depending on zone districts, if I remember correctly.
Go ahead, Jen.
So there was two sections of the sign code that were suspended through the end of this month. And it relates to banners and to the campaign style signs. They're in our code, I think they're called directional signs. I think, again, it's really hard to write rules that don't ever try to, it's intended to be a certain type of sign, but not content based. So I would say that relaxation would apply to political signs. There is still a prohibition having signs in the right of way, but I think that the waivers that we did that go through the end of the month, in all likelihood, apply to election signs as well.
yes.
So as of now, oh, sorry, getting some feedback. As of now, we're able to not take any action, and the waiver of those sign codes expire at the end of this month, correct? Okay. Sorry, Charlie, go ahead.
No, Deborah, do you have a suggestion if we extend it for commercial businesses, how long that extension should be?
I would say probably through the summer. I mean, and then you guys could look at it again. I think we're going to have a challenging winter and a challenging spring.
So say June 30, their second meeting in June, so we have a set time.
And if I'm wrong, you guys could always amend it. But I do think helping our businesses is one of your top priorities and one of our top priorities too.
My only concern with that, hold on, Charlie, can I just weigh in real quick? The only concern I would have is if we had, we have 3 council elections starting. I think you were able to start in January putting signs up. And I would just be hesitant to, have somebody who maybe has just a lot of money be able to just paper the town with massive banners and, 4 foot by 4 foot signs and just, turn it into a farce. And in all fairness, we need to give candidates, either existing ones or future candidates, a certainty of what they can and can't do. And I don't want them to order, or myself, order, $3,000 worth of signs and then the next week go, oh, well, you can't place those. That's not fair. So maybe we should, that's one of those unintended consequences just because of the timing of the year we're in. I don't know how much signage moves a business. I would love to hear from Steve Davis, his thoughts on this as well as a downtown business owner. But go ahead, Deborah.
Do you guys maybe want us to bring back an extension at the next meeting and you guys can talk about it then, so you can think about it? And
yeah,
that was going to be my suggestion. So I think that's a great idea, Deborah, and you and Carl can look at the issues we discussed here today and see if there's a way legally that we can extend this and make it reasonable so we don't have gargantuan signs, as Jonathan mentions, because I don't think that's the intent. And I would hope that any election would not, the city election particularly, get to that level. So
magic is Carl's department, so he will get right on that.
Okay, that's good. That's good. I want Carl to be busy. He's got nothing else to do right now. So I have just a couple other real quick issues, Mr. Mayor. As you know, I'm on the CML board, executive board, and the CML president has made his goal, and it's the president's goal that apparently they have every year, is being increasing diversity. And you'll be seeing things come through. And Deborah, I don't know if you've got a survey, or somebody in the city, I think, got a survey about what we do about diversity. I don't think we have much in nature policies that I'm aware of. But it is something that's very important, particularly given the current political climate, that we make sure we start looking at diversity things. I just want you to be aware you're probably going to be seeing some things come out of CML. The second issue in CML is next Friday, a week from tomorrow, is the first policy meeting where they're going to begin looking at suggested legislative changes. And I don't know, Carl or Deborah or anybody, or City Council, if you have anything you want me to take to that meeting, you're representative on the policy committee for changes to the laws in the state or clarification of laws in the state at that meeting. If you do, let me know in advance. And I don't think we can vote on them at a meeting, but I at least think these are concerns we have. Last issue is probably dovetails into the first issue we talked about, which is masks. I've had several people contact me and say, is the city going to allow Halloween treat collecting? And so I'm raising that issue, and I don't know if that's been discussed by staff or a position's been taken.
I know Brian has been working on actually like a little event with downtown businesses. If you guys want to hear about that, I don't think we're intending on canceling Halloween. But if you want to hear more about what staff is planning, they're kind of already working on, I think, somehow trying to activate downtown with like correctly sealed bags. And
I'd love to hear about that. My kids are already making plans. So if Brian could talk about that for a few seconds, that'd be great.
Yeah, can you hear me all right?
Fantastic.
So we're looking at a Halloween spectacular. It'd be a downtown scavenger hunt for hidden pumpkins within participating businesses. That'd be the last weekend of October leading up to Halloween. And participants will automatically be entered to win some fun, spooky prizes. And then we have, we're planning a festive community center activation with showings of Charlie Brown and the Great Pumpkin, doing some social distancing type of activities. And that'll be on Halloween evening as well. Along with that, we had a meeting the other day with a lot of the downtown businesses talking about Small Business Saturdays and marketing special holiday offerings from participating businesses throughout Glenwood Springs, starting in November and then going through every week in November. And we would hire holiday characters to bring a number of different festive things. We're looking at reindeer that Cindy was trying to get scheduled for us down there for photo ops. Have a kind of a big blow up snow globe with Santa inside that kids could come and get a photo with Santa. It's like a 3-meter snow globe type of thing. Also encourage businesses to interact with patrons and offer goodies that are individually packaged so kids aren't having to reach their hand in. So we'll continue to work with the businesses over the next few weeks and look at a number of different activations down there just to boost up our businesses and provide a little bit of community engagement.
And I believe Santa would be inside the snow globe and the kids would be outside the snow globe.
That's correct, yes.
Right. All right, thank you, Brian. Appreciate that update. All right, other additional comments from City Council? Seeing no virtual or real hands, we will go on to our next item, item number 10, consent agenda. Is there a motion to approve the consent agenda? I unmuted you, Charlie. There you go.
I move to approve the consent agenda.
Is there a second? I see a second from Paula. Okay, let me unmute everybody so we can do a voice vote. All right, all in favor of approving the consent agenda signify by saying aye and or raising your hand. Aye.
Aye.
All opposed? Motion carries unanimously. All right, item number 11, Aspen Valley Land Trust presentation. Okay, I see Commissioner Jankovsky. I'm going to remote you to a panelist. There you are.
Can you see me all right?
I can hear you. I can't see you.
Okay, as long as you can hear me, that's great. I believe also Erin Quinn with Aspen Valley Land Trust is on, and Laura Speck, who's within your Parks and Recreation Committee and is also a neighbor, is on. We're here to talk about the land east of the Bell Rippey development that you just approved, as well as east of Walmart. And that is land that is in unincorporated Garfield County. Laura Speck contacted me via email and just asked if anything could be done about basically the trash and the dump. It's more than trash, the dump that is on that land. It's 108 acres. So I walked up with Laura and she showed me about approximately 4 different dump sites, and I was actually shocked. I didn't realize that this was going on, but Laura's mom is the last house on South Palmer, I believe, and so she's adjacent. Her mom's house is adjacent to this land, and the first ravine had trash in it, probably 10 feet deep. And this was trash, not only, a lot of it is plastic bottles, but it's propane cylinders, it's bed frames, it's mattresses, it is more things than you can imagine that would have been up there and have been dumped up there. Bicycles, really is truly a health hazard. And we walked on down that land, and it is there are homeless camps on that land. I saw at least 3 tents when I walked it, and that was back in the spring. So it is an unincorporated Garfield County. I got a hold of our code enforcement officer, asked them to contact the owner and give them a code enforcement to clean up the property. And by doing that, got me in touch with the owner. He called me after talking to the code enforcement, and the owner would like to donate that land. It's 106 acres, would like to donate it to either the county or the city. The county's in no position to take on, I guess what I would call it, open space land. We don't have a parks and trails department. We don't really own any land other than the land that's under our facilities or our buildings. So talked with Aspen Valley Land Trust to see if they had an interest in this, and with that, county. Well, I guess before I turn it over to Erin, the county would like to participate with the city if the city has an interest in that land as open space and as trails or a park type space. The county would like to participate, especially in the cleanup. I think we could grant dollars back to the city to help with cleanup and so forth. And with that, I'd like to just turn it over to Erin Quinn, who can talk about Aspen Valley Land Trust's kind of position, because we did talk to them initially about them taking over that land, but let Erin talk about their position and their thoughts.
This is Erin Quinn with Aspen Valley Land Trust. I'm not sure if you guys can see me. Mine just says a little name, but thank you for taking the time, everybody on this call, to hear about this opportunity. As Commissioner Jankovsky explained, this is a unique opportunity that the landowner is wanting to donate the land. Just a little bit of background, AVLT is, or Aspen Valley Land Trust, we are a nonprofit dedicated to land conservation. We work in the Roaring Fork and Colorado River valleys. About half of our work is in the Colorado River Valley and the other half in the Roaring Fork. We're very partnership oriented. So this is right in our bailiwick here. So since this project has sort of come onto our plate, which was very recently, We've explored the potential for some partnerships on this property, including the county, RFOV, who the Roaring Fork Outdoor Volunteers, Ron Rash is on the line, the Roaring Fork Mountain Bike Association, several folks in the service arena, including Catholic Charities, the neighbors of the area, CPW, BLM. The underlying element of all those conversations is that the support is there for this idea. I think what kind of unites everybody's excitement on this opportunity is that it's an opportunity for a potential trail system in town available to locals and visitors, and an opportunity to turn what is currently a health hazard into a healthy access, outdoor access for the community. With that said, the property does need some work. We're not ignoring that at all. It does have a fire danger and some health and waste hazards that Commissioner Jankovsky mentioned. Let's see, we do recognize some of the hurdles. And we recognize that, you know, there are costs involved with owning a project, as well as sort of just the short-term cleanup and trail installation. And we're not immune to that. We recognize that. I wanted to explain a recent project that we did in Carbondale, very similar. Some of you might be familiar. It's at the intersection of Highway 133 and Highway 82 at the base of Red Hill. There were some folks experiencing homelessness using that property as well. The property was activated with a trail system. In the meantime, ABLT fundraised to both purchase the land as well as have a management fund created, so that when the city of Carbondale, or excuse me, the town of Carbondale took over ownership, they were also handed some funds to deal with the ongoing management and to help provide staff to maintenance the property. We're willing to play that role in this project. By no means do we want you to feel forced to take this on or anything. We're not advocating, or we're just filling a role that sort of has evolved through the community. But if you guys are interested in exploring this opportunity, we'd love to help convene the partners. And I do think that it could be a real crowd pleaser. I will say that the Red Hill project that was completed last year, folks are really appreciative. And I think the town is really glad, that that's a decision they made. Let's see, I do want to say that I do think this park, if you want to call it, should it move forward, it wouldn't require a lot of maintenance in the terms of like mowing the lawn, or it'd be very hands off. But I do recognize that there'd be trash cans to empty and just staff time to go check on things. And again, we'd be willing to fundraise for that. Right now, we're presented with an opportunity to apply for a grant to Great Doors Out, Great Doors Outdoor Colorado. I'm messing that up. GOCO, which many of you are familiar with, I'm sure. But in order to move forward on that grant, we would need to demonstrate a plan of long-term ownership, which is sort of what we're gauging here today, hopefully. And again, please don't feel pressured into this or anything. We're totally open to ideas and brainstorming and comments. And with that, like I said, Ron from RFOV is on the line. I don't know, Ron, would you like to say anything in addition?
Sorry, let me find him.
Thank you.
Is he a panelist? Sorry, y'all.
And Jonathan,
oh, there we go. I got him. Ron, you should be allowed to talk.
How's that, Jonathan?
It's fantastic.
Thank you. This is Ron Rash, Executive Director with Roaring Fork Outdoor Volunteers. And as Erin was saying, we partnered with ABLT on the Red Hill project outside of Carbondale. It turned out to be a wonderful project for everyone. And as Erin said, the project ended last year. Roaring Fork Outdoor Volunteers, again, is another nonprofit that we've been in the Valley. This is our 25th year. Our first project that we worked on was the Scout Trail, and we also worked on it again. That was our first project this project season. We've had a long time relationship with the city of Glenwood Springs, working on the Scout Trail, Jeannie Golay, the Wolfson Trail, the trail system going up Red Mountain to the Cross. And of course, Hanging Lake is a trail that we work on every year. We are not an advocacy group, RFOV, so I cannot sit here and say that we are advocating for this project east of Walmart, but I can say we are willing and have the capacity to build trails on the site, put in benches, put in picnic tables, whatever would be needed for the project. When I say we're not an advocacy group, I say that because we don't want to alienate any of our volunteers. We look at ourselves as a conservation organization, not an environmental group. It sounds like I'm splitting hairs, but again, we don't want to alienate anybody in our regional community. So we do, as I said, have the bandwidth to work on this project. I've looked at the maps, I walked the site, and I would agree with Commissioner Jankovsky that I haven't quite seen anything quite like what is on the land there since traveling. I lived overseas for a year in India, and the amount of trash was astounding and appalling. We can also muster volunteers to help with the trash cleanup after ECOS would go in and clean out the hazardous materials if they're there. We can't send volunteers in at this point. So again, we are on board once the land issues are settled. For the most part, we don't work on private properties. We're a tool of public land management agencies, whether it's the Forest Service, BLM, Garfield County, City of Glenwood. So once that's all settled and we can be part of the master development for it as far as a trail system, et cetera. And that's, I can answer any possible questions, or that's all I have to say. So thank you very much.
Thanks, Ron.
And Jonathan, before Laura starts, I do want to acknowledge Councilor Stepp. She's been involved. This is in her ward, and she's been involved in a lot of discussions as walk that lane as well. I just wanted to acknowledge. I left that out of my presentation.
Thanks, Tom. All right, Laura, yeah, you're next.
Okay, can you hear me?
Yes, fantastically.
Oh, good. Well, I just want to thank you guys so much for putting this on your agenda to hear. Obviously, you know, this is a passion project of mine. It's personal because it is in my family's backyard, and this parcel of land was such a beautiful space for my brother and I to grow up and, you know, have our tree forts and run around on. And so it's been really disheartening over the years to see it become such a disaster like it's become. And our whole neighborhood, we've tried the best that we can for many, many years to clean up what we can and to do our part, but it's just becoming overwhelming. And I just, you know, when I sent you guys an email in, I believe in June, I started this concept in May, just out of a little bit of desperation and trying to reach out to as many different avenues that I possibly could think of. And I spent many, many sleepless nights tossing and turning, trying to think of clever ways. And, you know, it was kind of a pipe dream at first when I thought, well, maybe we should activate the land. And that's a really intelligent way of, you know, having people walk their dogs safely and having kids up there to play. And with this development that's going to be created across the street, there's going to be even more people presence. And I think that with all of these joint efforts that we've come together, I don't think we'll ever see it get as bad as it currently is. And so that's reassuring for my family's property, because we're terribly afraid of fires and, you know, losing our property, losing our land. And this summer has just been such a good example for all of us, how fragile our little valley is, and how we just need to make it such a priority to keep it so special and so, you know, sacred. So I am over the moon that we're having this conversation. All of the diligence and hard work that Tom's done on behalf of my little interests is just astounding to me. To have Aspen Valley Land Trust and the Roaring Fork Out Deer Volunteers Club be so enthusiastic and supportive is just a real statement that I feel like we have a real amazing potential. So I just like to really, you know, speak freely, and hopefully we can just come up with some really great positive solutions for something that currently isn't a very positive solution. But thank you so much to Paula and to Shelley and to other city council members that have communicated with me. And I am always available to walk anybody up to the sites to show them in person. So please always keep that in mind. And I'm just really excited to have a discussion and continue. So thank you so much.
Thanks, Laura. Yeah, you know, this has really kind of come up on us really recently, and really, you know, your work obviously in bringing together Aspen Valley Land Trust and other, and obviously Commissioner Jankovsky, thank you as well, and Paula. You know, I think at least I would like to hear from probably our police force to find out, you know, and Brian, you know, you're going to be the one that ultimately has to deal with this. So if you don't mind, I'd love to kind of hear what your thoughts are on how it might be managed. You know, is this the highest and best use, or what are your thoughts on this?
Sure, yeah, thank you. I don't know how much value there is in the land as a municipal park. We haven't done a lot of on-site looking at that potential yet. But we do have a park designation process in place, and this is on the agenda for the Parks and Recreation Commission on October 13th. My recommendation would be to allow that process to take place, let the commission look at it, weigh out the pros and cons, and maybe chip off some of the rough edges of this proposal. But I also want to make sure that the conversation is straightforward. It's not really a conversation so much about a municipal park designation so much as homeless encampment cleanup issues, and making sure that we have a responsive action to addressing the encampments that are right now not being addressed on that land from the county. We do see that when we have good trail activations, those encampments tend to move other places. They don't disappear, they just move. You can look at Wolfson Trail System as a good example of that, as well as some of the areas around Red Mountain. But I think the value that they're looking at, the potential is there. We can certainly go in, activate the space. We had a meeting today with RFMBA about potential trail alignment along Lookout Mountain, and looking at how we can impact some of the issues we have there with encampments. But again, I don't know that this will necessarily solve the issue. We'll have to look at whether we annex that property or simply make it city-owned property within the county, similar to what we have in South Canyon, but that provides us with some jurisdictional enforcement issues, which PD can probably speak to a little more. So it's a complicated issue, and one that we really have to look at. What is the outcome that we're trying to achieve? And I think the outcome that Laura and her group are looking at is how do we address these encampments, which is about 20 of them around that area. How do we address that and not just move it, but solve some of those issues?
Thanks. And Brian, you know, and I think having the Parks and Rec Commission review it is probably a good first step. You know, it kind of jumped all the way to us because of the folks involved, but, you know, taking a step back and having our Citizens Advisory Commission weigh in on it and what priority it is and to what extent they feel the value is probably at least something I would support. Erin, you had your hand up, and so did Mike Pritchard. So Erin, go ahead.
Thanks. So I really appreciate that, Brian. I appreciate the process. So thank you. I wanted to touch base really quick on, on the folks who are using this property as a home. So we did reach out to the service arena and had the best luck with Catholic Charities. They're very familiar with the individuals living on this property and were very supportive of this project. I don't want to speak for them, so I'm sorry that they're not on the call, but they were a little bit, they felt like the current landowner is maybe serving as an enabler because there aren't signs, he's not kicking them off. And there are services available to these individuals. You can't force services on anyone, but the lady who we spoke to was very eager to help these individuals in particular. Now I do recognize, we're not going to be solving the homeless problem in the entire city, but I do want you to know that, that's not being overlooked. And we welcome any suggestions. So I do not pretend to be an expert on this topic, but yeah, so that's all on that.
Awesome, thanks. And Mike Pritchard had his hand up at one time, so I'm going to call on him because I want to. Where are you? Maybe he dropped off. I don't see him. Hold on. There he is. Go ahead, Mike.
All right. Thank you, Jonathan. Good to see a bunch of faces tonight. I think that this is a very exciting opportunity, but first, a quick introduction. I'm the executive director of the Roaring Fork Mountain Bike Association. So yes, I had a good meeting earlier today with Brian Smith we touched on this opportunity. And so I'd like to make 2 points. I think that this is something that should be pursued. I do think that it's a wonderful opportunity that the landowner is willing to put this land towards public hands. So that's number one. I do think that this should be pursued. But number two, I think that we will need to prioritize any improvements. And I do think that there needs to be proper management planning to see how we can utilize the property. And when I say prioritize, I'm keeping in mind that if you look in your packet and you look at the broader city map that shows all the parcels currently held by the city of Glenwood Springs in that light blue color, you'll notice that north of here, there are a number of parcels. And those include the trailheads for Doc Holliday's grave and the Scout Trail. And that is the area that was identified in the city's comprehensive plan in the Parks and Rec values or planning segment that said that there should be a connection between Doc Holliday's and the Scout Trail eventually. Well, that was also identified within the Glenwood Springs Area Concept Trails Plan about 5 years ago. Earlier this summer, we finally took the first steps to start planning trails that would make that connection. So we now have about 6 miles of conceptual trail that is flagged in detail, but we're still at the earliest phases. So we have some continuing work to do with both CPW and BLM, but we do look forward to presenting on those trail concepts towards the commission and eventually to this council. What we did find on the ground is that there's lots of encampments in those city parcels. So we have the same exact issue happening on city parcels to the north. So I would like to see all of it addressed over time. It is a matter of priority. So I would urge you to support it, but let's move forward carefully in terms of where investments are actually made and when they're made. Thank you.
Thanks, Mike. You know, I feel like a lot of this came up because, you know, there's this Facebook page, Laura, that I think you got started, which is awesome. Like they keep going clean and green, which really showed, I think, the community, like, my gosh, like what's going on here. And it's not to that extent, at least from what I've seen on the Boy Scout Trail or Doc Holliday Trail, but just having a trail there doesn't mean that this isn't an issue in those places as well. It's just maybe not quite as horrific. But you know, one of the things that we've talked about, I think we've been held up a little bit with like the North Landing and other places, because this concept of once it becomes a park or once we own it, then, you know, the ACLU and, you know, rightly or wrongly, and, you know, just our hands are tied, legally tied. And so I think we've had conversations about the North Landing about, well, if we just turn it into a park, then it could become a homeless encampment. If we maybe make some privately owned or privately leased plaza space similar to Hotel Colorado, then we have a leasee who's able to manage that, keep eyes on it, and have activity. And so at least the last council was very strong about not creating more space that would enable more encampments to come up or tie our hands legally. And so I don't know, Carl, if you would be able to kind of opine and tell us why this might be different than the Boy Scout Trail or different than Doc Holiday Trail.
Well, I mean, I think that if we take title to it, I mean, that does create a whole different set of issues for us in terms of enforcement on city property. I guess I'm reluctant to give you any absolutes because of how you might put a deal together. But certainly, if it's in city ownership, then you know, there are some realities to Supreme Court decisions regarding what we can do and we can't do that are significant in terms of an enforcement capability. And certainly the Boy Scout Trail being primarily on easements across private property, enforcement is different off the trail. And so those are things we'd need to carefully consider, because I don't know, and I don't know if the chief is going to be able to weigh in or not, but I do have some concerns about our ability to effectively enforce in that location if it's not on private property and it's not a trespass, as to how that property is used.
Lieutenant Kimono, Sergeant Kimono, Lieutenant. Excuse me, I was going to name you Corporal at some point, but Lieutenant Kimono, do you want to raise in on that or weigh in on that enforcement conversation?
Yeah, it depends on whether it's annexed or just a city park. Raises different enforcement issues. Again, like Carl said, with court decisions come down constantly, it causes issues for enforcement, and that particular piece of property, not easy to access. Or we've been out there to respond in the county's stead before, and there are some real issues up there. It would, not that we couldn't do it, but yes, there would be some enforcement issues, both legally and just logistically. If it comes to pass, then we'll figure out a way to do it. But as Carl said, there are some legal issues in how we can and can't enforce on parks, be it annexed or just a city park within the county. That changes things also.
Just sorry to keep asking questions, and I see a couple hands up, but thanks for indulging me. How are we able to enforce, like South Canyon, you know, city owned, but not underlined, it's county, in the county, but city owned property. So
City
how does
park,
that different?
it's a city park, but it's not tied physically into the city boundaries. So we cannot enforce city ordinances up there. All we can enforce are state laws. So for example, we've gotten complaints of dogs at large on the mountain bike path. There's not a state charge for dog at large, so we can't enforce that. There's not a state charge for camping. So by virtue of it being, it's city owned, but it's not within the boundaries of the city limits themselves. By law, we can only enforce state laws and not city ordinances. If it was within the city boundary, like Sarah Park, then all of the municipal ordinances come into play. But if it's not within the physical boundaries, then we can't enforce city ordinances. It causes problems.
Gotcha. Thanks, Bill. Paula, I unmuted you if you go next, but Deborah had her hand up. So if she can just add something real quick, usually I try to get her in there. Go ahead, Deborah.
And known about this for a couple of months, and I have struggled with it because, you know, when we made the no camping ordinance downtown, it was kind of with the understanding that we told you guys that we would not then be able to enforce camping in the hills, right? Because people have a right to sleep. That is just one issue I think you guys need to think about. I think you should continue this conversation for sure, but I just think council needs to be aware of the fact that we could be taking this piece of property. We will then be responsible to clean it up year after year after year, not only the trail area, but the park area itself if people continue to camp. So I think you should continue the conversation. We should run it through Parks and Rec. We should talk about an endowment-like situation with the Aspen Valley Land Trust. And I just can't recommend that you guys jump into this decision tonight. And with that, I will turn it over for you guys to make your decision.
All right, thank you, Deborah. Paula, you're up.
Wow, we dove far into this. I'm hoping we can get some public comment as well. But so a couple of questions. If the city can't, we can't enforce it, is it still up to the sheriff? If it's county land, but the city owns a property, can the sheriff be involved in that? At any level of jurisdiction? And is that the case in South Canyon?
No, they won't enforce it if it's city park. We have to enforce it.
So it is up to us, okay. And you referenced accessibility. Laura, I think you spoke a little bit to what you thought would be a way to access this property. Can you speak to that again? I wanted to know where you thought you would get up into the park area if we did do something with development there.
Okay, so when you look at the area, you know, the land parcel that's closest to the end of Palmer Avenue, it's a little steep, it's a little difficult. So I was looking more at either the one side of Walmart or the other side of the Roaring Fork Marketplace that's down past where, like near where Sherwin-Williams would be. And BLM has already come out and they're aware of, you know, the conditions out there, but there's some really obvious pathways that I think would be better accessed from those locations. And I think, I could be misspoken, but I think I heard that that Walmart or the Roaring Fork Marketplace, I think they lease that land from the city. So then the city could allocate maybe 5 or 6 parking spaces that could be a trailhead that's already an established area that you pave and you maintain. You know, I look at Red Mountain as kind of the example that it would be a pretty low maintenance. You know, you have maybe your 5 or 6 parking places. Yes, you have the trash receptacles or the dog waste receptacles at the bottom of the trailhead, but that there wouldn't be a huge amount of maintenance. So anyhow, Paul, I don't know if that answers your question as far as the 2 spots that I was looking at logistically, that would be the best entrance points, and there would already be areas that are paved and ready for a parking.
Thank you. And then Tom, can the county, can this land be given to the county and then later have a transition so it's given to the city if we went that route?
That is a possibility. The county just would like some assurance that we're not going to, you know, once it's donated, that we're not going to have it into perpetuity, just because we don't have the ability to, we don't have the personnel, and we're sure not in a position to start a trails and parks department within the county. So, but that is a possibility, yes.
So my question pertained the reason I was asking you that is I know this grant opportunity is coming up with the deadlines, and it sounds like we really need to address this carefully and have the Parks and Rec Commission and the Parks and Rec Department thoughtfully look at this. I'm just wondering, is there a way we can sign on to supporting the grant as we go through these steps a little bit more slowly? And maybe that's a question for Erin.
Yeah, that would work. The grant is due October 16th. And let's say, let's say it got funded and some unforeseen situation arose after that, we wouldn't be forced into it. I do think it would be wise, and I'm not asking you guys to make a decision. If you want to make a decision with some caveats, great. Really this was just to educate everyone of the opportunity. But if you want, you could potentially consider some options with some caveats, assuming we get X amount of management funds dedicated to the property, or, I'll leave that to you guys to decide what those would be. But I think that would be reasonable on our end.
And my next question is for Jonathan. Are we just asking questions at this time, or should I give some comments?
I think, let's go through the questions, open up to public comment, and then come back and give some comments if that
Great.
works.
Thank you.
Real quick, let me ask a question, because something was brought up by Laura, that we own the land that the Roaring Fork Marketplace or Walmart is under. Is that something that you're aware of, Carl?
No, not that I'm aware of. I'm not sure which pieces there are.
Okay, I didn't know. I didn't. That was news to me.
There might be some right of way out there that is ours, that the parking lot, is partially on or something like that, but not that I'm aware of a significant piece in the Roaring Fork Marketplace.
Okay,
it's a private PUD.
Okay, thanks. I saw Steve Davis's hand up. Is it not up anymore, Steve?
There you go. I've got comments. I just pulled it down for the comments.
Gotcha.
Later.
Okay. Shelley and then Tony.
Okay, and my hand was up mainly for comments, but I did have a question just to clarify what we're doing here tonight. Because I was under the impression we're not really here to solve these issues or make a big decision tonight. I think it's just maybe to give direction. Is that correct?
That was my understanding. And honestly, with the grant due in 16 days, I don't think we can resolve ownership issues. I don't think we can do anything other than potentially write a letter of support.
Right.
And even if they get awarded that and it all falls apart, they can always decline the award or return it. It's not the end of the world, and there's no lawsuits. I don't think that'll be flying around if it doesn't pan out.
Okay, but more just to give direction on whether or not we're interested and we want to keep exploring this further, right?
That's my understanding
Basically.
of what we're trying to do tonight, yeah.
Okay, thanks.
Thanks. Councilor Hershey.
Well, Shelley sort of asked my question and you sort of answered it, Jonathan. So is there, you talk about this grant and obviously we're not going to be able to move that quickly. So what would you like to see, Mr. Mayor, and the direction for Aspen Valley Land Trust and the county come out of tonight?
I would just like for folks to have an understanding from this council whether we are interested in pursuing this and how. And is it, we might say, listen, we are under no, we do not want to own this land. Like we just don't, and we might make that decision tonight. We might want to say, maybe we want to own the land, but we would need to have some pretty hefty endowment. We need to have some commitments from other funding partners. We need to have a $1 million GOCO grant in the bank. Like, what are those things? And also I think the time, at least for me, this is a personal question I guess I would have is, this has come out like in the last 60 days, and this is a massive expansion of potentially our parks and what it would mean. Something like this usually takes years, and I don't know that there's massive urgency to run at this thing for a deadline 16 days from now. So I guess my suggestion would be, I know now I'm getting into comments section, I know I shouldn't be, but my suggestion would be that we at least give direction to enough folks this evening so that they know what our comfort level is with the project in general and the timeline so that they can calibrate their expectations. Councilor Voorhees.
Yeah, just a quick question. The grantees cycle, does that come around annually, semi-annually? Maybe you said that and I didn't get it, but I'm just trying to figure out where all this lies. It seems like there's some underlying decisions and dialogue that has to happen to get us to that point. So I'm just wondering if October 16th isn't the operative date that we go for, whether there's some other cycles that would be out there in the future. Thanks.
Great question. So GOCO, gives a lot of funding every year. This particular opportunity is very unique. It's in response to COVID, so it's in support of creating resilient communities, giving communities a space outdoors. I do not foresee this opportunity coming around again unless COVID is rearing its head this strongly again next year. That is sort of the unique situation with this timing. I will totally agree with all of you that this is quick. I think the grant due soon in combination with the landowner currently being willing to donate the land are the two sort of stars aligning. And again, we just look to you for your level of comfort, even with the idea. So we're all ears.
All right. Any other questions?
Yeah.
All right. Oh, go ahead, Ron. Yeah, go ahead.
Hi, this is Ron again with Roy Fork Outdoor Volunteers. I know this is a little bit maybe thinking out of the box a little bit. I think it would be really beneficial. It would open eyes to everybody to do a site visit. I would really encourage the council to do that. You can see the potential for the land. You can see what you're up against to invest. Just a suggestion.
Ron, I think that's a great suggestion. I think, we're trying not to do too many group activities with COVID. So I think anybody, I guess I'll just leave it on to each individual counselor. Who should we contact, Ron? Who would be the best person to contact to arrange, I guess, a private tour of the place, or maybe we can go 2 by 2.
Laura already mentioned she would be more than willing. I've been out there with Erin. I would be willing to go out with 1 or 2 council members. I can arrange it and just do a walkthrough. We can walk the Glenwood ditch to see the, like I said, the potential for the property.
Gotcha. Thanks, Ron. Real quick, one last question I have, Erin, is how much is this grant worth that you're going to be applying for?
Okay, that's also a great question. So we are combining this grant ask with some other community, what we call community conservation parcels. For this particular property, we'd be asking for $150,000, which would help to cover trailhead, potential parking. We've created a line of communication with the Walmart Corporation to see if they dedicate 10 spots and just paint them green and we could put the trailhead there. There's great access from there. The 150 would be, we'd have to brainstorm. We'd have to write down a budget for what exactly that'd be spent on. The cleanup, potentially there'd be some leftover to go towards part of the management fund. I suspect we'd have to look elsewhere to, create a more robust management fund. But yeah, long story short, 150 grand for this particular property is what we'll be asking for if you're interested. Yep.
No, that's helpful. It's really helpful. Okay, seeing no other immediate questions, I am going to turn it to the public. Any comments or questions from the public? Okay, Seeing none, I will bring it back for comment time from council. We're doing this is more of a regular, like a work session, so I guess we don't have to treat it so formally, I guess. But yeah, I guess just let it fly, and Commissioner Jankovsky, jump on in, and if people want to respond to the comments, that, you know, knock yourself out. So go ahead, Councilor Stepp.
As Tom mentioned earlier, I've been in a few conversations with the various people involved in this project, and I have done a tour of the property with Laura and with Ron and Erin. Actually, the four of us were together, and I've lived in this ward for a while, and I've actually walked up in that area in the past, and I used to walk up there quite a bit, but I was stunned, as Tom was, by the mountains of trash that we have back there, and cleanup has to happen. So that has to be a priority, and I'm very excited that the county is looking into helping resolve this. I believe Laura has already gotten the quote from Ecos on the cost to get some of that done. It was very gracious of Ron to agree to get his volunteers to help us with Roaring Fork Outdoor Volunteers. There are a number of things that I look at. South Glenwood, you know, Mike Pritchard talked about, you know, the trail systems on the north side of town, and, you know, we have Red Mountain and we have Wolfson, and then you come to the south side of town, and I think we need to start building awareness of this side of town. I'm disappointed when I see businesses shut down and can't make it, and we need to have some activity going here on the south side of town. And this kind of opportunity, I think, would open that door a little bit. If we knew that people were coming down from Carbondale to, you know, hike on this trail system, or people in town were out there, there's more likelihood that some shopping could happen more out there. So that would be one benefit. The other thing that I'm concerned about is this trash coming back. When I look at those trash piles, and I look at the fire pits, and I consider this summer where we were so concerned about a fire coming through town, if it happens here on this side of town, it'll go all the way downtown. So we need to do something as a town to be proactive here. We can't just say, oh, well, it's not in our backyard, so we're not going to worry about it, because it is in our backyard. So I would like everybody to kind of consider that, where we want to be in the future on this property. It can be an asset to us as a town. It is a lot of property. I totally get that. But you know, it's almost a legacy when you look at taking on that amount of property and opening it to the park system. So I'm going beyond my 3 minutes. I realize that. But those are some of the things that I thought about. I'm really encouraged by people's interest in it. I understand the developers of the Bell Rippey property have been contacted, and they would like to see something like that happen above this property that they're developing. The conversation Erin had with Walmart, with their interest, I'm sure other business owners up in that Roaring Fork Marketplace would be intrigued to talk about it. So I would encourage that we at least start a conversation and have the Parks and Rec Commission and the Parks Department continue the conversation and see if we can open this door and if we can make something happen. And I would really like at least to put a letter of to put the City Council's name on that grant application in support of going for that grant. With the things that Erin mentioned, I think there's an opportunity there one way or another for us to take advantage of a really nice asset for us.
Thanks, Paula. Charlie.
Thanks, Mr. Mayor. I kind of echo Paula's comments to a level, and I really think we need to look at this. Supporting the grant's a great idea, and I think your comment, Mr. Mayor, that if this doesn't pan out, they may have to turn down the receipt of funds if they get it. But it'd be a great start for funding. My biggest concern is how do we, on a long-term basis, fund this? So I think referring to the Parks and Rec Commission, that's why we have commissions to take a look at this, look at the cost, look at the benefits of this is the right way to do it. And I guess my last comment is I did not support the expenditure last year of money to clean up because my feeling was it was going to return and it would just be a never-ending cycle of spending money to clean up. It doesn't mean I don't think it should be cleaned up, because it should be. And Laura in particular, I want you to know that I really appreciate all the work you've done on this. I think it's a great job you've done in bringing this to this place. Having said all that, I think we still have to deal with how we're going to deal with the homeless situation surrounding the city. And it's a bigger picture thing. The idea of coming up with some kind of camp like they have at the, oh, I forgot the name. We mentioned earlier tonight up in Aspen, they have the camp at the bus transfer station. I think we have to begin looking at those kind of solutions. How do we try to find a place for homeless people to, for lack of a better term, camp safely for us and for themselves? So this is part of the ongoing discussion. Thank you.
Thanks, Charlie. Shelley, you're up next.
Okay, thanks. I'll say I also echo and agree with Paula and Charlie. I really like the concept of being able to clean up this property, and not only just clean it up now and have to keep dealing with this level of collection of waste on an annual basis. I think if we activate that space and we put trails on there, we're not only creating an open space, usable asset for our residents down in that south area and all over town, but we're also keeping this problem from going on and being as bad every year. You know, in the areas where we have trails, we do still have some issues with camping, but they're not quite as bad as this area has been. If I recall, it wasn't too far in the past that there was a death up there. There's crime up there. There have been fires started in the last couple of years. So it's really a hazard, and I think it's time to address it. And this is a great opportunity. The term you were looking for, Charlie, is safe outdoor space. And we did have that presentation by Debbie Wild and others, and we have that ongoing kind of looking at system-wide solutions for homelessness. I think this can be part of it, and a good piece to fit into the bigger picture. So I would like to see us explore this. I'd love to hear what Parks and Rec has to say. I'd love to see, you know, what we can do kind of in the model of Red Mountain or Wolfshone, and see if we can have a trail system in this area. And I guess with that, it's part of our strategic plan that we have stewardship of our lands. And this is an opportunity to take some control over this land and do some stewardship on it and take care of this land. And I really appreciate the county being willing to be a partner in this, and AVLT, Roaring Fork Outdoor Volunteers. So, and I appreciate the work of Laura Speck and her group for bringing this to us and kind of persevering on getting this area cleaned up. So I definitely support exploring this more. Let's look at the opportunity, explore the partnerships, and see what we can put together on it.
Sorry. Thanks, Shelley. Steve Davis.
Well, I think it's absolutely a great project for someone to take on. However, that someone is not Glenwood Springs. We cannot continue to take on everything in the world around us. We have hundreds of acres around town that we've never done anything with. We have the all that ground along the river under the high school stadium. We have thousands of acres up South Canyon. South Canyon is used as a dumping ground. It is a dump site. It includes a very hazardous hot springs that we have not addressed. We've done nothing with it. We have no plan after decades of ownership. We should be very careful and cautious about taking on additional liabilities, and this certainly would be a huge liability for Glenwood for forever. I just don't see that we can continue to to do that until we get some of these other issues taken care of. We've got a lot of property we need to manage, and we don't do anything to manage it. So I don't know why we would think that we could just take this other project on and manage it when we haven't done anything with any of the other projects that we've got.
Thanks, Steve. Tony, you're up.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I agree with Steve and Shelley, and they disagree with each other, but I think Shelley raises some very important points about some of the issues that occurred up there, including criminal activity and fires. There was an arson. There's been some very serious problems there, but I have to lean more towards Steve. I mean, I don't have a problem exploring this, but this city has a lot on its plate, and this community has a lot on its plate, and this is a big amount of property to take on. But I'm always open to looking at something, but I think we have a lot of other issues to address. Thank you.
Thanks, Tony. I guess I'll give my comments and maybe wrap it up. And then I have one more ask of Commissioner Jankovsky before he gets off. Commissioner Jankovsky and I spoke a couple months ago about this, and I think my position is it hasn't changed a whole lot in that, I'm very cautious as well. I agree with everybody. But I want to see a more deliberative process. I think that just because there's a lot of trash and homeless people on there right now, and it's gross now, doesn't mean that we need to rush into something we're going to own for generations, forever. I think we need to be very thoughtful and methodical. I think the first thing that needs to happen is it needs to go through our Parks and Rec Commission. I think the other thing we need to talk about is an ongoing management fund, which has been mentioned, and really talk about that, vet it through. If a management fund kicks off $40,000, or 4%, and 40,000 is the number we need to have to maintain this property a year, which might or might not even be close. That's $1 million that just needs to be sitting there escrowed somewhere. And so I would like, I don't need every last bread cent committed by the 16th. I am very supportive of writing the grant for what we can and writing a letter of support on behalf of that. However the eventual ownership goes or how it works out, I don't know. But I also think, activation, it's been mentioned a couple of times. And I think that, again, when Tom and I talked a couple of months ago, I intimated that I would like to see the Bell Rippey project go. I'd like to see there be shovels and bulldozers out there. And if that thing gets built, when it gets built, will it change? Does that activation, do those eyes on that hillside change the use? Because I think the homeless population is always going to be with us. No matter how many tiny homes we build, or no matter how many safe outdoor spaces we have, to a certain extent, there's going to be a large part of that population that doesn't want to be in a safe outdoor space, or who doesn't want to have a home or those rules or those constrictions. And so I worry about squeezing a tube of toothpaste and the toothpaste just going somewhere else. That's not to say we shouldn't explore this and do due process. I don't want to rush at it. And I really do want to continue to talk about mental health. I want to talk about detox center. I want to talk about the underlying issues, because until that happens, we're just going to move this trash and these people to another part of another acreage somewhere else. So I can't give my full-throated support without having underlying conversations as well, if that makes sense. And so I would say let's kick it to Parks and Rec. I would say we probably should have Financial Advisory Board weigh in on this as well. I don't want to bore this to death, but I think if it comes back to us in the next couple months of, we vetted it, we looked at it, here's a management fund, here's how we're going to pay for it, here's how we're going to pay for the cleanup, ongoing maintenance, here's how we have an intergovernmental agreement potentially with the county so that if there are issues that arise, here's how we handle law enforcement. All of those things need to happen. I mean, this is the start of a long conversation. This is not the apex of it in my mind. So with that, I guess I'm hearing enough people that are generally willing to explore going through the process, possibly with the exception of Counselor Davis. And Rick was really mad about this too. I could tell it in his eyes. But other than that, I think staff has probably the go ahead to continue to explore this. I would just say, make this the priority that it needs to be, and let's be deliberative in this because it's a big thing. Any other questions, comments? Anybody from Aspen Valley Land Trust, Ms. Speck, Run for Outdoor Volunteers, Park? Anybody want to say anything else in conclusion? Okay.
Yeah, Mayor Godes, this is Commissioner Jankovsky, and yeah, I hear what you're saying and agree it needs to go through a process. That I totally agree with that. My big concern about this property is getting it cleaned up. And Councilor Bowman said, if we clean it up, completely clean it up today, we don't do something about the management of that land, that will just be reoccurring on a annual basis or as well. So so that's my priority, is how to that. So happy to go through your process, and we'll just see where it leads.
Okay. And I think we've committed $15,000. I voted for it, unlike Councilor Willman, because I think it does need to be cleaned up, and we might be throwing that money away. And I know the county has committed substantial funds to it as well, to have ECOS do it and have other people pitch in. So I'm glad to have all the participation, and I think we might be here a year from now or 2 years from now looking at the same thing and having the same conversation. But I don't know, what the timeline is on cleaning it up, if we still want to do it this fall or if it's spring cleanup. Has anybody had any idea on kind of the timeline on that, Deborah?
When I talked to Tom, Commissioner Jankovsky a couple months ago, I just said we were happy to donate our $15,000 to the county, because right now it is not within the city and we don't have ownership of it. So it's very difficult for us to clean it up.
And Deborah and Jonathan, I think the issue is that there's a private landowner, and we're in a similar situation with that Deborah mentioned. We need we can't just pay to have that cleaned up on private land. That's why for ownership by the county or by the city, that's a different process. We can come back in and do a health order, and then whatever fit on that property, clean it up. It then goes lien against the property owner. But the property owner right now he's trying to work with he's just trying to work with the city and the county to donate land at the best use. So there's some complications that way as well, of trying to clean up private property, public funds.
Yeah, and sorry, Tyler, kind of cutting out a little bit, but I think we got the 95% of what you're saying. Erin, you had your hand up. Would you like to speak on this?
I just wanted to say
Sorry, that was me. Yeah, I did that on you.
That's okay. I just wanted to say thank you guys for even exploring this opportunity. Again, we are not interested in pushing this on you. It's just something that's come onto our table. And if the process, has us coming out that, we should proceed, great. If not, no hard feelings. But I do want to clarify that I'm hearing that we should proceed with a grant application. And if we decide that, you know, this isn't a good fit for the city, then we'll withdraw those funds if we're awarded. Is that a fair takeaway?
That would be my suggestion. Everybody else, thumbs up? I see enough thumbs up. Yeah, I think so, Erin. I think you can feel good about going for that grant application and seeing if it's successful. That'll really force the conversation if you get that grant. So, okay, one last thing. I have, well, Commissioner Jankovsky's on the line. I know your connection's not fantastic, so I might just follow it up the call, but we are going to be writing a FEMA brick grant for Southbridge funding of, I believe, $29 million. And we were wondering, I know you can't commit your Board of County Commissioners to anything without speaking to them first, but would you please take back to them that we would love their support and maybe a letter of support in writing that grant to FEMA.
And Mr. Mayor, you know, from my perspective as one county, I feel that's a very important project. I would have to bring that back in front of the board. So as soon as Deborah can get that over, we can get that on our agenda.
Thank you, Tom. I really appreciate it. And sorry about the poor connection. And Deborah, just let me know when you do that. And I can speak to the Board of County Commissioners and present that if that would be helpful. Or you can do it. I don't care. Like, why don't you do it, actually? You're a much better presenter than I am. Thank you very much, Tom, Laura, Erin, gosh, who did I miss? Mike Pritchard, everybody else, Commissioner Jankovsky, obviously, for bringing this to us this evening. We really appreciate your time. Sorry we got started a little bit late. Sorry we went longer, but thanks so much. And let's everybody reconvene. It's 8:10, usually about this time of evening. Folks need a little bit of a break. It's 8:10 now. How about we come back at 8:17, take a 7-minute break, and we'll get back at it. Is that okay for everybody? Give me a thumbs up if you want a 7-minute break, or you want to keep powering through. Okay. We'll see you at 8:17. All right, are we ready to go back live? All right, we are back. At least a majority of us are back. Yeah, we at least have quorum that I can see. All right, next item. This is item continued from the September 17th meeting. This is appointment to boards and commissions, Historical Preservation Commission. Tony, you're the liaison. Would love to hear your thoughts on these appointments.
Okay, well, tell me if this is confusing. You can hear me, right?
Yeah.
Okay, so 4 people applied, and there are 4 positions, and Catherine will correct me, but Deborah Williams applied. She's on the HPC now. Marcy Dahl, and if I pronounce anyone's name wrong, I'm sorry. She is not on any boards or commissions. Very nice. Deborah Bosna, who's on the HPC, applied, and Carolyn, who we saw this morning, or it seems like this morning, we saw at 4:30. She's on the Carolyn Clippery. She's on the P&Z, and she also wanted to serve on the HPC at the same time. So you have 4 people, 2 of them who've been on the HPC, 1 for a long time, and 1 who's never been on, and then 1 who's on P&Z. And then I guess I could talk individually, Mr. Mayor, about each one briefly. I don't have a ton of information, but I interviewed all of them.
Thanks, Tony. I appreciate it. You know, I think, and this is a conversation that's been going on for like a lot of meetings, but I think, you know, my question would be to the rest of council. We have 4 open positions. There is an alternate right now. And I believe one of the applicants, I could find it, and Tony could probably tell me easier, has been serving since 2011.
Yeah, is that Deborah? Well, there's 2 Deborahs. Is this Jennifer now or Gretchen? Is she on?
Let's see. I believe it is. I believe it's Marie Stahl that's been serving.
Yeah.
And this would be her 5th. She's served 5th term, so this would be appointing to her 6th term. And, you know, I guess my only comment would be, you know, in the code, it does lay out, we've had the conversation that somebody has to be deemed, you know, basically essential to these boards and commissions. I think Historical Preservation has a number of these people who've been serving for the better part of a decade. And I guess this is, Maurice is great. I served with her for 2 years when I was the HPC liaison, and she's fantastic. But
she's been on, Mr. Mayor, since '99, actually. Is that what you said?
This would be her 6th. Yeah, you know what? This would be her 6th term at 3 years apiece. So better part of 2 decades. And, you know, I think it might be healthy. This is no reflection upon her to have her step off, promote the alternate onto as a regular person, and then advertise for an alternate position and maybe get some new blood on that commission. That would be my suggestion, but I'm very willing to hear other people. Knowing there's like 3 other people on that commission that have similar tenure. And I think the next conversation we're going to have is going to be February about another board member whose term has, I think they'll be asked to be appointed for their 4th term. And then we have to make the hard decision. Well, is every person going to be essential to every board? And I think that's the hard part of it.
Well, she does, Mr. Mayor, bring a lot of institutional knowledge, and it is the Historic Preservation Commission, so it's historic. But maybe you might consider if she could switch and be an alternate. I know she really enjoys serving on that board, but she understands that she's been there a long time. And she told me herself, Jonathan, that like she wants fresh blood, but all these people do it because they love it. You know, they certainly don't get paid. And, you know, she wouldn't reapply if she didn't want to do it. So.
Yeah, and I just think you don't ever get fresh blood until you have an opening.
I understand.
But I would love to hear from some other folks. Paula.
Did I hear you clearly, Jonathan, that maybe she could step into the alternate position?
No, I guess my suggestion would be that she step off the board after 18 years and allow that position to be vacant so that the other members can recruit somebody. That would be my suggestion.
I think it's going to be one of those, we have to, as you said, we've had this discussion a number of times and we all have to decide, is this what we're going to do? And are we going to hold to this going forward with all of our different boards? And if this is the time and we're willing to make that step forward, I'm okay with it. You know, I'm listening to Tony and I hear his recommendation for Maurice, and it sounds like a great asset to our city. But, you know, if we're going to make this change, let's make that change. If maybe that's the vote, we're going to make that change. Let's do an A or nay on that. And then we can decide whether or not we're going to. Or did we vote on that last week? Did you have us vote on that?
What we voted on was changing the application, from my understanding, so that it was just much more clear. And then anybody who did apply, and I guess this would be a grandfathered case, so we wouldn't have to consider it under the same rules, but essentially is anybody who did apply would have that clearly written from the code that said you're only allowed 2 terms unless you're deemed essential, blah, blah. Please tell us why you're essential. And then that person would need to be interviewed by the entire city council for us to pass that recommendation down. But just I have, as a point of reference, we do have, let's see, we have a couple of people, Ron Carstensen, who's the board chair, who's been serving since 2010. His term expires in 3 months. So we'll have to have this conversation about him as well. And then we have another person who is expiring 6 months after that. I'm sorry, a year after that, who's also been on for another, well, Edward Chisit has been on since 2013. So like I said, I'm willing to go where you guys do, but that's just kind of, we're going to have this conversation over and over again. Shelley.
I just had
sorry, Paula, were you done?
Oh,
sorry.
Okay. I think in principle, I agree with what you're saying, Jonathan, and Paula also. My question is, if they, just for clarification, my understanding on a board or commission, if you step off for 1 term, you can get back on then again and serve a few more terms if you really want to do that. But I do understand that it gives that opportunity to get some new people involved on commissions and boards with city that otherwise might not have that opportunity. I would like to say though, for someone like Morris, who has served for so long on the Historic Preservation Board, she's really contributed to the city and helped the city. We have to appreciate our volunteers so much. And I would really just like to say a heartfelt thank you to her if she doesn't get put back on the board tonight. But thank you for all of that service and really caring about historic preservation for Glenwood Springs and working to preserve the outstanding buildings in the city. So
thanks, Shelley. Steve Davis.
I'm fighting this evening with this mute thing. We've always managed our own mute, and now you're managing it, and I'm just fighting with it.
Sorry, it was a weird thing.
So anyway, you know, I just think we're overthinking this, and I hear what you're saying, and I have some appreciation for it, but the reality is it's so hard to get people on some of these boards. I think it's Maris Dahl. I think without Maris on that board may not even exist. So I completely support her staying on that board in that position. And I think we see this over and over again. And some of these boards, they're not all like P&Z, you know. Some of them just barely hold on. So I don't want to overthink this to the point where we end up with, you know, not even be able to fill a board.
Thank you. Tony.
Just real quick, Mr. Davis, I am so sorry. I mispronounced her first name. And I know some of you say Maurice and some of you say Maris, but it's Maris, right, Jonathan?
Yes.
Okay, so I just wish, I mean, there is a compromise, and Paula talked about it, where she could serve as an alternate. I will tell you, we had a long conversation. We were talking about the sanitarium building across from Commissioner Martin's house. You know, she's just so knowledgeable about the community, and she's been here a long time. I just, you know, I'm not a big fan of term limits, although sometimes they do work. You know, you have a lot of people who serve a long time and they know a lot of things. And then we have like in our legislature, we have a big turnover. So you lose that institutional knowledge. But I guess this is different than an elected official, and they serve at our pleasure. And I really appreciate Jonathan's concerns. I just hate to lose somebody who's such a big supporter and fan of the board and really one of the rocks that holds it up. Thank you.
Well, I guess I would say to that, no, I appreciate that for sure. And I think this particular board, and we have several others that are similar, where there's multiple people that have multiple decades of experience. And so losing that historical connection doesn't end with one person. We have 2 or 3 other people on that board who've been serving for more than a decade. And so I think, at least if we're going to go this direction, then I'm going to put on the agenda that we change our code, you know, because right now our code says you have to serve 2 years and then get back on. If we don't want to do that, if we're not going to abide by it, then let's change the code. And I'm fine with that. I just don't like having something that's a law that we don't follow or we just ignore because it's convenient. So I would say, though, if we're going to make an exception for Maris and do this, then we should have no more than one person per board. I just cannot see how you can say, you know, the way the code is currently, you cannot have more than, or it says you can't have somebody serve more than 2 terms unless they're deemed essential. Maybe Maris is that person, but you can't have 3 people deemed essential. And honestly, if she doesn't get appointed to this and that seat stays open, and literally no more than 7 people care about historical preservation in this community, then I guess I know where we stand. You know, there's got to be other people that will step in, and I think open position is one of those things. And by the way, we're just asking her to take a 36-month break. And also these are open meetings, so she can continue to come and participate. She just won't have a voting membership of it. So we're not precluding her from participating at all, or even precluding her from participating for the next 36 months. We're just precluding her of having a vote. And there's probably never been a 4-3 vote on that Historical Preservation Commission ever. So I don't know what the big deal is. And I think you're right, Steve, we are overthinking this. I think we just should follow our code and do it, or we should take affirmative action and change our code. Okay, Paula.
I'm almost wondering what you said, and what we voted on last time is, you know, she did not fill out the new form. Maybe we let this one go through, and any new commissioner, and this really goes back to Catherine, and she could clarify this, is any new commission opening gets this new form. Deborah. and we know they've seen it, they know it, they know what our ruling is. I just kind of feel like we're in this twilight zone of, is this decision going or not? So let's make that fine line, that dividing line, and move forward.
Paula, Catherine and I talked about it, and we didn't want to feel like we were picking on anybody, so we didn't want to change it after it had already been submitted. What we decided was going forward, we would have that done, but everyone had already applied, and it had already been a public discussion.
Okay. Oh, sorry. You didn't have your hand up, Paula. No, go ahead.
I would feel that at this point, she used the old form. We're in this transition. I would feel fine supporting her this time, but moving forward, we set the line. We said, this is it, and we go forward. But it is a council vote, and as Steve said, we are overthinking this.
And I'm fine with that. I'm willing to go with the oh, sorry, Tony. Go ahead.
I was just going to make a motion, Mr. Mayor, along those lines that we accept these 4 applicants for the 4 openings. And I know I cut you off, Mr. Mayor, but we were saying going forward and what Paula was saying, that this be readdressed. And this is sort of, excuse the term, grandfathering in or grandmothering in these applicants. If there's a second or not.
Looks like Steve Davis has seconded. I guess I would maybe ask for and maybe this is a separate motion or separate conversation, but I would just say that I will not be voting in the future. Then if this is the person that this board is going to have as their, keeper of stories, this person who served as, you know what I'm talking about, Tony. Then when Edward Chisholm comes up in 2 years and Ron Carstensen comes up in 3 months, I will be voting against them because I don't think each board needs to have unlimited people that just sit there forever. And I think that board probably needs to decide who their one person is who, is the essential person. If we're not going to deem that, then the board should. So is that something that I can make as a
I would amend my motion to include that, Mr. Mayor, if Steve agrees, so we can address it in the future.
I'm actually, am I there?
Yes.
I'm actually not sure where we went on the amendment there. What were we amending to? And
the amendment is that there's no more than one person on any board that is deemed essential to the.
Okay. That's not, I still think we're overthinking it, but if that's what it's going to take to move this agenda along tonight, then I will accept that amendment.
Okay. Shelley. Shelley, I think I unmuted you, but I don't know if, there you go.
Okay. I guess I'm not real clear where we are with this motion either. This is to appoint all 4 applicants to the board, is that correct?
Yes.
Are we specifying who will be the alternate?
No, there's already an alternate.
Okay, then we're going against our code,
Yes.
right? Okay,
Yes.
thank you.
Charlie.
I'm looking at the memo. It says there's 3 open seats. So, do I missing something? The memo that we have in the packet says the Historical Preservation Commission has 3 open seats.
Well, this might have been an easier conversation had we known that when we started off. Where are you at, Catherine? Catherine Fletcher.
Can you hear me?
Yes.
Okay. So I was trying to pull up the memo, and from what I remember, it is 3 seats.
Tony's holding 4 hands up, so 4 fingers. I'm going to unmute him so he can clarify.
No, okay. I thought we had some rule about, because one of these 4 applicants does serve on the Planning and Zoning Commission, just so you know. So, but she has never served on P&Z. So my mistake. Thank you, Catherine.
So I guess if we have 3 open positions for 4 applications, does that change how people feel about, well, one person's not going to get appointed. Who do we want that person to be?
Well, then I guess you follow the code. Oh, sorry. Oh, I'm talking. And then I guess you follow the code. I'm fine with that, Mr. Mayor, if you agree to that.
I don't have the second, Steve. Go ahead, Charlotte. Sorry, Charlie, go.
Oh, I thought we were waiting for Steve, but he was going to amend the second. To me, we follow the code, you know, if this is the third term, it would be a little bit different, but we're talking about the sixth term. I mean, and I really appreciate the service of people on our boards and commissions, but we have 3 people and one that's got a longer term. I think we have to follow the code. And I really appreciate all the time that Ms. Dahl has spent, and I know she's been a valuable contributor to this community. So it's not, these aren't easy decisions.
Steve, would you amend your second? You're unmuted. You're already unmuted.
Now I still don't know where we're at, really. I'm amending my second to what? That we follow the code and we throw her application out?
Deborah.
Can we ask Gretchen to confirm whether it is 3 or 4 before we go fully down this path?
Yes, Deborah makes a very good point, because I'm at the city website, and this is why I was confused. It says there's 4 open positions on the city website. Is Gretchen there, Mr. Mayor?
I do not see. Yes, she is.
Okay, sorry, I was trying to unmute myself.
Okay.
To be perfectly clear, I do not know right at this moment how many open seats or how many people are up for renewal, but if you give me a couple of minutes, I can take a real quick look.
Is there a motion to table this either until a later point in the meeting? Because I don't want to just hang out here waiting for a couple minutes.
Let's table it till later in the meeting. We tabled it already once for a meeting. I don't think we should put it up to another meeting.
I agree. Is there a second for tabling it? Second by Shelley and Paula. We'll do Shelley's second. All in favor signify by raising their hand. Okay, it's unanimous to table it until such time we can redetermine. We'll revisit that in a couple agenda items. All right, next item, that's completely unsatisfying, is, let me get us there. Sorry, guys. She probably knows by now. Oh, easy one. 2021 budget discussion. This is, so in the past, what we do is this is just a presentation. We're not being asked to vote on anything tonight. We are not opening for public comment. This is just Steve and staff and Yvette giving us the overview and presenting it publicly. And then we will, I believe the next meeting, we will have a first reading, open it up for public comment, counselor comments, and then at the next one. So I think, if there's any questions tonight that you haven't had answered up until this point, that's fine. Ask them, better now than at first reading or second reading. If there's things that you would like resolved or have questions that you maybe don't want to bring up publicly, but you want to get resolution for before we have a first reading at the next meeting, that's fine also. So with that, I will turn it over to Steve Boyd. Or Deborah. You need to raise your hand, Deborah. That's how it works.
Thank you, Council. Tonight, I'm going to do a budget presentation for 2021, but before I get to that part, it was really important to staff that we take some time to talk about what 2020 looked like. So I have never shared my screen before, so I'm going to give it a shot and figure out if I can do it.
There you go.
Okay. Like a little
nice job, Matt.
Nothing. Okay. 2020, as we all know, was a challenging year, but staff still got a lot done, and that's what I was going to talk to you guys about. Okay. We started off with crashing revenues in March. This chart, if you look at it, this is the chart we showed you for the worst case scenario. We, however, decided that the show must go on. So, even though we closed City Hall and the community center, we still figured out a way to move forward. One thing to celebrate nicely from 2020 is that I think we got notification yesterday that we got a clean audit from 2019. So Yvette and Steve managed to pull that off even with everything that was going on. One thing I should have pointed out in the show must go on is that, as you know, we implemented a plan in May to save all of our full-time employees' jobs that required a 10% cut in pay, elimination of 401k benefits until mid-August. We laid off almost all of our part-time employees, and we put hiring and wage freezes in place. One of the things that made it possible for us to have a virtual City Hall was, luckily, on January 1st, we went to a totally online HR payroll system. So we went from having to fill out paperwork every 2 weeks to just do everything seamlessly online. Very proud of our city clerk's department. My pages are wrong. Catherine managed to hold an election in April that was totally socially distanced. She trained new judges, everyone wore masks, and we just got it done. Also this year, she sent in an application to host the 2021 Colorado Municipal Clerks Association in Glenwood Springs, and we were successful with that. She figured out liquor enforcement to allow outdoor dining and process modification of premises in record time, and set up Zoom meetings for liquor and marijuana hearings. What our IT department did was amazing. Overnight, they successfully migrated the city offices to a work from home format, facilitating a virtual city hall. They replaced all of aging city servers, storage, and backup infrastructure with best practice designs in order to maintain the integrity and availability of critical city systems. They are currently implementing a citywide management software, which includes many improvements to our city GIS layers. And they continue to improve our city staff, help our city staff with improved IT help desk and ERP implementation. As you know, we happened to sell the MOC this year. Very thankful that our electorate approved that. And that allowed us to replace our fleet building, our parks building, our boneyard we improved upon. We're currently designing an electric/broadband building. We're going to be hopefully opening bids for a recycling center soon and breaking ground and having a brand new recycling center downtown by the end of the year. And we're opening a bid on October 7th for our compost lagoon at the landfill. Okay, for community and economic development, working with the chamber and with the DDA, we awarded $300,000 worth of grants for COVID relief to 132 local businesses. Each business got $2,273 each. In pretty much record time, community development had all of our restaurants that wanted outdoor dining up and running. They're currently working on a Safe and Warm Streets Eats project. We secured a $50,000 grant from CDOT for outdoor dining in the winter through the Can Do Community Challenge through CDOT. And working closely once again with the chamber due to the Grizzly Creek fire, community development secured an EIDL funding from SBA for Garfield County and neighboring counties. Okay, community development was very busy. They processed 59 land use applications this year as compared to 50 total in 2019. Staff thinks that community development is on track to have processed the most land applications since 2006 when we processed 67 applications that year. And please remember, doing all of that, I also stole a planner for public information. We had the Bell Triumph/Bell Rippey project approved, and you guys really suffered and got to a good compromise on your riparian setback approval. This was from the mud flow picture. I couldn't help myself. when the river turned red this year. Recreational economy. We completed a technical assistance workshop through the EPA and the U.S. Forest Service to examine our recreational economy and opportunities to expand it. We have heavily invested in our recreation economy throughout the years, but we knew it could still be improved. The workshop was moved online due to COVID, and the first day of the workshop was the day that the Grizzly Creek fire started. But we got through it, and we believe it will be very helpful as we move forward recovering our economy. Parks and recreation. After years of planning and decades of community requests, the shoreline restoration and trails improvement project was completed. After that completion, our boat ramp usage has increased about 25%. And it's also a beautiful, lovely park for everyone to enjoy. Our community center was shut down due to COVID-19, but it offered virtual recreation to the community, including virtual fitness classes, kids corner, community egg hunts, community clue games, and other fun activities. They successfully reopened with the safety of staff and guests as the #1 priority, and with a skeleton crew. We used the community center with its skeleton crew as an evacuation center of operations, working alongside the Red Cross to provide meals and a safe, stress-free environment to the families displaced by the Grizzly Creek fire. And through all this, we continuously reassigned staff outside of their comfort zones and job descriptions to assist with essential operations. Because it is safer to recreate outside, even though the park staff had a 50% reduction, all part-time staff and 2 full-time staff that we could not rehire, budget cuts, there was still a 40% increase in park usage that we had to deal with 50% reduction in staff. Our Parks Department operation changes were significant. The department reorganized, moved out of the MOC, spent time planning and building out their new department building, started expanding it a little bit to fit. This was all done with budget cuts in place and some creative planning and cross-department collaboration. The art plan. In 2020, the public art plan process was greatly impacted by COVID-19. The numerous in-person and public outreach activities planned were canceled. Despite the setback, the Arts and Culture Board and Park and Recreation Department, along with Designing Local, have not given up on the goal to create a plan that will outline processes for acquiring, commissioning, the placement of new art, as well as the preservation and restoration of historical artwork. So more to come on that, but that is still in the works. Public safety. We're very happy that Chief Darris decided to join us. We hope he spends many years with us. He has been with us through Snowmageddon, fires, pandemics, just to name a few, but he hasn't left yet. We all noticed there was a small pandemic that interrupted our lives. We were the first city in the state of Colorado to issue a face covering requirement. We had numerous Facebook Lives and listening sessions that focused on health, prevention, and recovery in English and in Spanish. We created a virtual city hall. We pulled in resources from all areas of the city to manage this crisis. And if that was not enough fun, on August 10th, the Grizzly Creek fire started. While the fire is almost 100% contained, it created the need for major water improvements and potential risks to I-70 and the no-name community. We're currently working on a community-based effort with really 5 areas: supporting our tourist economy, trail and canyon mitigation, fundraising, water quality, and public outreach. We held a flood after fire meeting to warn our community about flood risks. Said, while the fire is nearly out, there will still be long-term effects that we have to deal with as a city. Probably about $10 million are not in this budget that we will need to find through loans and grants to fix our water quality issues quickly. So as we figure that out, we'll keep you informed and we'll amend the budget as we need to with your approval. Police department staffing. The PD has provided excellent service while being significantly understaffed this year. for a good portion of the entire year, but I'm happy to let you know that we've successfully recruited 6 officers this year. 1 that started in late spring, 2 that will start this month, and 3 that are in the police academy. And of course, our fire department. They've had a really challenging year. Their EMS calls are up 7% to date, but their fire calls were up 70% to date. So they have been extraordinarily busy. Okay. Public Works and Engineering. Cedar Crest, we had a ribbon cutting today at Cedar Crest. Thank you all that attended. 22nd Street. This project was designed and constructed internally. It included water and sanitary line replacement, as well as the new roadway drainage and sidewalk improvements. The ribbon cutting is planned for October 9th. Middle Midlands. The improvements were done this summer, and I hear the mayor really, really loves the speed bumps. 27th Street Bridge. This feels like last year, but it was still this year. The project replaced the most poorly rated traffic bridge in the state of Colorado. While the project was challenging for our community, it was eventually replaced within the construction budget. 6th Street Roundabout. This project significantly improved the aesthetics at the gateway of the city. Cardinal Substation, we've been working away at this year. Once it is completed, it will help with resiliency throughout our electric department for the city. And you guys were brave enough to give us direction to move forward with a $9 million project to build out fiber to every home for broadband. Thank you very much. More to come soon on that. And our first emergency water of the year that I barely remember, but was awful at the time, was when the raw water line blew out. We got that fixed up pretty quickly. Okay, public information. One of City Council's goals was to have a public information officer. And so we hired one that I stole from planning. So Hannah has done a tremendous job this year. She provided significant help for both information and call support during the Grizzly Creek fire. Our public information to the raw water line supply line break, as well as water restrictions. She was integral, and we had excellent PIO response, including Mina in the fire department, for our smaller emergencies this year. The mudslides, the 109 brush fire, the 111 fire, the Mountain Shadow fire, 3 Mile fire. Just as a comparison, there are 57 press releases so far in the 2020 archive folder. For reference, between the 2016 and 2018, so 3 years, there were 119 press releases total, and a total of 60 press releases in 2019 for the whole year. We had listening sessions that focused on public health, COVID-19, mask efficacy, Latinx, and Spanish one is in progress. And then, of course, we had the Facebook Live series with the mayor and city council that were watched significantly. Okay. Human Resources, Dana created a wonderful new newsletter that you guys are all copied on. She also did significant work in developing and implementing new policies and procedures, initiated an employee recruiting and onboarding experience that is significantly better, created additional employee training and information opportunities to enhance employee morale and organizational transparency and trust, and ensured protocols that are being followed for all employees' entitlements, including FMLA, FSLA, and all the new laws surrounding COVID, sick leave, and employee rights and responsibilities. She's literally beat her head up against the wall to figure out how we handle every kind of COVID situation, working in partnership with legal. Okay, grants awarded. Working with sustainable strategies this year, we've accessed over $5 million in state and federal grants to support important community priorities like the Regional Assistance to Firefighters Grant, the Goku Resiliency Grant that will allow us to rehire a limited number of park employees, $3 million in CDOT funds working in partnership with RAFTA for the 27th Street underpass, funding for our new recycling center, funding for our MOVE study, and funding for our water crisis. We continue to work to protect our community from the proposed expansion from RMI with the Citizens Alliance. And finally, we approved the 2025 strategic vision of City Council. We followed the strategic vision of council as we created this 2021 budget. I want to take a second to thank all of staff for all of these accomplishments, all of you guys for supporting us through it. And then I also want to thank Carl and his team. They were with us every step of the way. Okay, your strategic goals. Number one, provide efficient and responsive city government. Preserve and improve infrastructure. Protect and preserve our quality of life. Generate sustainable economic development. Ensure public safety. A general overview of the 2021 budget. Projected sales tax revenue is down 10%. General fund expenses are down 7.1%. We maintained all full-time staffing. There were no COLA increases, but health insurance increases were absorbed. Available reserves are $2 million in capital projects, $3 million in A&I, and $4.5 million in our general fund. The budget meets all FAB recommendations. A couple of things that we took out that not in this budget this year that are of note: the $120,000 that we were transferring to the general fund from A&I was eliminated. $100,000 transfer to the general fund from tourism was eliminated. $100,000 transfer to the general fund from the DDA was eliminated. There's $7.3 million in street projects, $580,000 in routine street maintenance, $4,586,000 in water wastewater infrastructure projects. And then the large projects that we're moving forward with, I kind of categorized under your strategic visions. Provide efficient and responsive city government. We're continuing to move forward with the ERP implementation. We're working on utility billing now. Once again, maintaining all full-time employees. ViewWorks will go live in 2021. We will continue to our IT computer replacement cycle and server and switch upgrades. For preserving and improving infrastructure, Phase 1 Red Mountain South subdivision will move forward next year. The Cardiff Tank number 2 construction will move forward. Water line replacements at 9th and Colorado, 21st Street, 23rd Street, and Blake Avenue. We will construct our electric operations center and our landfill pond construction. South Midland construction, we're hoping to kick off at the end of this year, and it will run all next year. This is we're thinking about a $12 to $13 million project. It will be wonderful when it's done. It will be very hard while we're doing it. So just please be patient. We're going to continue to move forward with Southbridge planning. In fact, we're hoping to go after a $29 million brick grant. So more to come on that. Working in partnership with RAFTA, we're going to continue to push forward and potentially design and bid out the underpasses next year and start construction. Protect and preserve our quality of life. There are going to be improvements to the Whitewater Park return and parking. Basic maintenance for the community center that was in the 2020 budget, but that got cut. Lover Trail extension, the Meet Me in the Middle project, we're going to move forward with construction next year. Sayer Park improvements, and we have money to match a grant to update a comprehensive plan that you guys talked about today. And then we're going to be putting in a lot of effort to protect our water quality and our water that we can provide to our community. Generate sustainable economic development. We still have our USDA microloans. Jen has been working very hard on advancing the 6F designation for 8th Street crossing.
And I hear you guys might want to also move forward with the other parts of that project. Collaboration with the DDA and Chamber on retail gaps, and the continuation of our art plan / mural project. Finally, ensuring public safety, successful completion of the Assistance to Firefighters grant, improvements to our West Glenwood Fire Station, savings for the replacement of our West Glenwood Fire Station. The police department will have a more efficient parking program with a vehicle. And then we're continuing to invest in firearm safety and training equipment. Now, this isn't, other than a couple of large construction projects, this isn't the most exciting budget ever. And it's because we're assuming revenues are going to be 10% down. But all in all, I think we're going to do a lot of really good work, and we're going to do the best that we can for our community and continue to push forward. The budget schedule, public hearing October 15th, council adoption vote November 5th, appropriation vote December 3rd. I'm gonna try to, Steve told me right before this started that we just got back our final audit numbers for 2020 today. So while not, they had to push the audit company pushed back the audit all throughout audits all throughout Colorado. So, or yesterday. So those are new numbers to us. They're slightly different. So they need to slightly tweak those budget numbers. And we're hoping to make it, we're going to make it public by the end of the day tomorrow and send it to you guys. So this is one of those things, you don't have the final numbers until the audit is done, and it's just a crazy year. If you guys are ready for us to, we need, I think, permission for us to post the draft budget publicly. So that is something we would like. You guys have been looking at it over the last 2 months in work sessions. And with that, I think I am done with that very long, but yet hopefully very entertaining presentation.
Wow. And here I was thinking we really didn't do anything in the city. Questions for Deborah? All right. Well, okay. Counselor Davis.
Well, Deborah mentioned that there were 5 new officers hired. 3 of them are coming out as out of the academy. 2 officers. I was just wondering, are those 2 officers experienced officers, or do they just, are they fresh? I mean, are we bringing in some experienced blood into the organization, or what?
I'm going to let Bill answer that correctly, but I think if I'm right, at least 2 of them, we hired 6, and I think 2 to 3 of them are experienced. But Bill, if you could do a better job answering that.
Yeah, 2 of them are experienced officers from other departments, and then the other 3 are in the academy, are brand new.
And if I could ask, do they come out of the local area, or are they coming out of big cities, or?
One is from Arvada, and the other is a former state patrolman.
Oh, great. Well, that ought to be helpful. Thank you.
Yep.
Thanks, Bill.
Yep.
All right. Shelley, Paul. Yeah, Shelley.
Okay. Sorry, he's still having trouble with the mute thing. I don't have a lot of questions. Just one quick question for Deborah. The new parking vehicle that's being added to the fleet, will that be an electric vehicle, or will that be explored?
I believe it is an electric vehicle, though Matt can correct me if I'm wrong on that.
Okay, that would be awesome. It's a good application. And then just one comment, Deborah, thank you so much for going through the whole summary of 2020 and relating our big budget projects to the strategic plan. I think that's really helpful. Appreciate that. Thanks.
Thanks, Shelley. Paula.
Deborah, when we were looking at the riparian setback, one of the things that kept coming up was the city was going to do some work at Two Rivers and Beltis, I believe, on plantings and that type of stuff. I didn't really see that in the budget. Was that in there, or I know there was that I remember Brian saying, and maybe he can readdress this again, but that there was a grant that we were going to get, or there was plans for that next year. And I just didn't know if that's next year or the year after, setting that up.
Definitely going to throw that to Brian to answer.
Okay.
Go ahead, Brian.
We have that built into our operational budget. It's about $9,000. So we didn't need to pull that from capital.
Okay, that's great. I just remembered that we had that in there, and I wanted to make sure it was going to happen. And then the other question, and Deborah, I had mentioned when we looked at the streets budget that we didn't really have anything on spring cleanup, and you said we probably would not do that because of COVID next year. But I would really like us to have a discussion on a Earth Day or something like that. I'm just thinking, you know, we put off everything, hazardous waste people have not had any opportunity to get rid of. So something that we could work on next spring would be great to kind of help people with their cleanup and stuff.
Absolutely. I think we're tentatively planning that discussion for December. I can't remember if it's the first or second meeting.
Okay, great. Thank you.
Thanks, Paula. Any other questions or comments? Great job. Thank you so much, all of staff. And well, Charlie threw a hand in there, but I'll just finish my comments real quick and then let Charlie have the last word. You know, you don't really know how much you accomplished or how much you're going to accomplish until you literally put it on a piece of paper. And I think sometimes we sit here on council and we're like, well, we can just do more and we can just do more. And it's been a long time since we've had a big win, and we have ribbon cuttings all the time. So thank you. You guys do an amazing job. And we're lucky as city council and as citizens to have this staff. Charlie.
I just echo what you just said, Jonathan. I want to give a shout out to the staff. They've done a phenomenal job managing finances this year, getting things done, and I'm very proud of what we've been able to do, both as a city council with staff support this year. So I appreciate everything staff's done.
Thanks, Charlie. All right, Shelley. Oop, sorry. Hold on. I'm coming at you. Go ahead.
Can I make a motion?
Please.
I would move that we authorize staff to publish the draft 2021 budget for the public to review.
I'll second. All those in favor signify by saying aye and or raising a hand in the affirmative. Aye.
Aye.
Any decline? Aye. Nay. Any nays? Seeing none, motion passes unanimously. All right. Thank you again. All right. Next item. RAPA IGA and bylaws. Who's this? Okay. Thanks, Deborah.
It should be April. I'm checking to see if she is here.
Oh. I don't see her as an attendee.
We definitely need her. She was invited. She may have forgotten.
Okay.
I would suggest if she's not here, you table it.
Is there a motion to table?
I'll move to table the next meeting.
It looks like there's a second by Steve Davis. So all in favor signify by saying aye and or raising your hand. Aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion carries 6-1, I think. Was that a late hand, Rick, that you... Nope, we'll say it's 7-0. All right, next on the agenda is, do we want to go back to historical preservation? Gretchen, have you been able to determine whether we have 3 or 4 open positions? Is Gretchen still with us? Well, we might have lost Gretchen. Okay. Next item. We're just going to run through it. Let's go back to Go EV City. Who's presenting this?
Stefan. And he looks like he has his raised hand raised in the audience.
Okay. Where did you go, Stefan? There you are. All right. Go ahead, Stefan.
Excellent. Can everybody hear and see me? Awesome. Well, thank you so much for the opportunity to present the Go EV City initiative to the City Council this evening. I definitely want to be brief in the interest of everyone getting to bed at a proper hour. I'm going to share my screen and share a slide deck that was also sent over in the agenda packet for you to follow along, if that's all right. One moment, please. Okay, got that. And share screen. Okay, can everyone see the Go EV City title slide? Amazing. So my name's Stefan Johnson, and I'm the Transportation Program Manager with CLEAR. We manage Garfield Clean Energy and provide renewable energy, energy efficiency, and transportation consulting to all the municipalities in Garfield County. And tonight I want to present the Go EV City initiative, which is actually a statewide campaign that CLEAR is a part of in a coalition that includes the Sierra Club, Conservation Colorado, the Colorado Public Interest Research Group, and the Southwest Energy Efficiency Project. And the Go EV City campaign starts with a theory that local governments can really drive big change when it comes to decarbonizing our transportation sector. Transportation now accounts for the largest source of greenhouse gas emissions in the state and is going to be critical to decarbonize in order to meet the state's climate goals and really try and mitigate the adverse effects associated with climate change that we're all too familiar with. And so the theory of the Go EV City initiative is based off of the Ready for 100 campaign that has now resulted in over 300 local governments committing to 100% renewable energy. I think this is something that everyone on this meeting is very familiar with Glenwood Springs displaying exemplary leadership in being one of those cities that made a bold commitment and actually made it happen in terms of having 100% of your electricity supply come from renewable sources. And where this fits into the bigger picture is that the state of Colorado has targeted a goal of having 940,000 electric vehicles on the road by 2030. And so one thing that I want to point out is that, initially when the Ready for 100 campaign was launching, there was a lot of skepticism and, cynicism about whether that was a target that was realistic. And there was lots of conversations that, concluded that it wasn't and that it was simply an aspirational goal. And then in reality, we found that market forces have dictated that clean energy actually is the most economically viable option in many cases. And so it's really exceeded expectations, and the timelines really were ahead of any predictions. And so in my conversations with lots of counties and cities around fleet electrification, there's been a similar kind of dynamic going on where there's a lot of skepticism for cities that may not have one electric vehicle in their fleet about whether they can move towards 100% electrification. But I think the market forces, again, with electric vehicles and battery prices, mean that this is actually a very achievable goal for cities. And so what is the goal actually? What does the Go EV City campaign entail? So there's 5 steps that we were asking for municipalities to commit to in order to be declared a Go EV City. Number 1, adopt a Go EV resolution. Number 2, develop a transportation electrification plan. Number 3, designate staff time to implement the plan. 4, share best practices with other cities and counties in the state, and share key tracking data. So the Go EV commitment includes 4 basic pillars. The city commits to transitioning its own fleet to zero-emission vehicles. The city works with local transit agency and school districts to transition to zero-emission buses. City works with TNC companies to transition to zero-emission vehicles, and the city sets goals to transition all vehicles in the community to zero emissions. So for the city fleet, the way we've set this up is, we want to be pragmatic and realistic about the challenges and constraints that cities face. So what we're asking for is a tiered timeline approach when it comes to electrification of one's fleet. So right now, I think Shelley teed me up pretty nicely in asking if the new parking vehicle will be electric. Right now, in terms of small sedans, the market is there in terms of electric vehicles that meet the operational needs of most fleets and are very economically competitive on a total cost of ownership basis. When it comes to light duty trucks and SUVs, and then even some of your more specialized vehicles, we totally understand that the market is not entirely there yet, but we have a lot of faith and reason to think that it will be in the coming years. And so the city can pick a date that is best informed by your own research, outside research, and what you think is reasonable timeline for committing to the electrification of the various types of vehicles in one's fleet. One other really important part of the Go EV City commitment, and just I think is a good practice in general for all municipalities, is definitely to consider the total cost of ownership with vehicles when you're adding to your fleet. Because while the upfront purchase price of electric vehicles does include a premium today, the total cost of ownership when including the fuel and maintenance of the vehicle mean that over the lifetime of a vehicle, it will actually be very competitive with internal combustion engines even today, and we expect that to become even more economically attractive as the prices of lithium-ion batteries continue to fall. Next, working to electrify transit and school buses. I think you have great momentum there with a partner in RAFTA that is already leading the charge, no pun intended, with electric buses. And we all know that RAFTA is eager to take the lessons that they're learning in Aspen and expand them for their fleet, all the way up and down the valley and beyond. Additionally, Roaring Fork School District was one of the few school districts that successfully was awarded a grant from the Regional Air Quality Council to procure an electric school bus. Unfortunately, the budgetary impacts of COVID-19 means that the school district is not procuring any new buses this year, but we're confident that Roaring Fork School District has displayed a lot of leadership and will be very interested in revisiting this opportunity in the near future. Again, electrifying taxis and TNCs, not as much of an issue in the Western Slope as it is in the Denver Metro Front Range, but still an important consideration for making sure that the really high utilization, high mileage vehicles have a way to go electric and decarbonize. And then finally, thinking about ways to make sure that it's easy for all residents and visitors alike to Glenwood Springs to drive an electric vehicle and not have any sort of serious inconvenience associated with that choice. Here we have an example of the Go EV City resolution that was adopted by Boulder County last year. And so you can, take a look and see how the first kind of clause has that tiered approach where all new sedans will be electric starting in 2020. And then they set a date for new SUVs to be electric by 2025 and pickup trucks by 2030. And then we just successfully secured a Go EV City commitment from Boulder City just the other week. And just to, kind of show our flexibility, they included language in that clause that was something, accounting for making sure that this was something that was viable for them. So I think the language was something like, all new SUVs will be electric by 2025, contingent upon model availability that meets the operational needs of the fleet and that is economically competitive with similar internal combustion engine vehicles on a total cost of ownership basis. So, we're not expecting a city to commit to procuring $100,000 Rivian trucks. We know that it has to be economically pragmatic. So I rushed through there, but that's mainly the gist of the Go EV City opportunity.
All right, thank you, Stefan. Does anybody have any questions for Stefan or comments? Go ahead, Paula.
Stefan, what does it cost to set up a charging station per charging station? I know the city has put some in by grants, but I'm just kind of curious of what we'd be looking at that cost.
Yeah, that's a great question. And like many great questions, the answer is it varies highly. So with level 2 charging stations, which give around 20 miles of range per hour of charging, the hardware station itself costs around $5,000. And then the labor and installation and construction costs, those are really variable, contingent upon the station's proximity to transformers and the electrical infrastructure. But for a level 2 station, on average, I would say, a project would cost. Holy Cross Energy in Aspen, they just quoted that the cost beyond the charger, the hardware itself, was $4,000 per station. So the Energy Office and the state have competitive grants available that offer $9,000 rebates or reimbursement grants for each level 2 charging station. That's a conversation that I think, it is a big consideration as you continue to add electric vehicles to your fleet and think about the operational needs. Thinking about the charging infrastructure in the long term is it's definitely something that requires a lot of forward thinking and planning, but is totally doable.
So what is the 10 years out, if that was the 10-year goal of getting to 100, how many charging stations are you looking at for a city the size of Glenwood Springs?
That's another great question. And I think, I actually am not familiar. Does anyone know how many vehicles the city of Glenwood has in your municipal fleet?
Charlie, you know?
No.
Okay.
All right, well,
Hey,
let's
I
say
got
there's
unmute now.
200.
Sorry.
Does Matt know?
An exact number, no. We were actually looking at that today and I didn't count them up. We're probably in the 70 range between trucks and dump trucks and everything else that we have. We don't have any sedans. All we have is SUVs. So between all of the trucks, I bet we're in the 60 to 70 range.
So, you know, each station, each level 2 station, I'm assuming that most of these vehicles are parked overnight, which means that they could charge overnight with a level 2 charge and be fully charged. So each station usually has 2 ports. So theoretically, you would need 35 stations if you were charging every vehicle overnight. But realistically, I'm sure that fewer stations than that would be required. Because I'm assuming that not every vehicle would be going from 100% full to 0 on a daily basis. So, you know, the number, you know, the devil's really in the details. And so it would definitely take some assessment of the fleet, of the, you know, vehicle miles traveled on a daily and annual basis, and, you know, where the parking is to kind of come up with a realistic, you know, estimate of the charging infrastructure required to, you know, make this happen. And that's something that I would love to, you know, assist the city with and have billable hours to help look at exactly this question. What would it truly look like if the city was to electrify every vehicle in their fleet, and what would the infrastructure requirements entail?
And those charging stations, I'm assuming that the public has access to them as well.
I think for if the city was, you know, going to do this, you know, I think initially probably yes, especially if the charging stations wouldn't be utilized during the day by the fleet, because they would mainly be charging overnight. I think, you know, you can make them available to the public in some cases, but it's not a requirement. They could be exclusively dedicated for the city.
Thank you.
All right. I think Charlie's next.
Yeah, I see it's just a presentation. We're not being asked to make any kind of decision tonight.
No, I think that would be that there definitely would be a few more conversations that I think would need to happen for there to be sort of the some of the details to be flushed out to be comfortable kind of making this commitment and figuring out what kind of timelines and language would be, you know, necessary in the city of Glenwood's resolution to be acceptable. So yeah, I wouldn't expect any final motion this evening.
And just a comment more, I guess, a kind of a follow-up. That is that, yeah, I mean, for me to vote for this, you know, you're gonna think it's a great program. I need to have some sense of what the short and long-term cost of this is. So, but Stefan, I really appreciate the presentation.
Most definitely.
Shelley.
Thank you, Stefan, for the presentation. I had a question for you. So are you able to help the city with some of the analysis that would need to be done?
Yes.
They needed help in kind of evaluating what the cost might be, you know, what types of vehicles are available and that kind of thing.
Yes, I would be available to do that. And just some other useful context. So I believe it was in 2018 before Boulder County made the Go EV City, their own Go EV City resolution and commitment. They actually did telematics analysis of their entire fleet with a company called Swatch Labs, I believe. And, you know, the results that came back in terms of the vehicle miles traveled and the other kind of operational needs associated with the fleet showed that I think over 95% of the vehicles would be ready for electrification at that time. So it didn't seem like there were prohibitive barriers for that fleet to immediately start to electrify. And so there's some really interesting data and case studies that I would be able to share with the city, and we would be able to maybe look at without totally redoing or recreating a really in-depth and expensive telematics analysis of the city's current fleet and travel patterns.
Okay, and is that analysis, is that part of the Garfield Clean Energy membership, or would that be separate? Do you know?
So that's another great question. I would say,
okay.
It falls under the scope of work for multiple contracts that Clear has, Garfield Clean Energy being one of them, and then my contract with the Colorado Energy Office also falling under the scope of work.
Okay. Okay, and then Jonathan, can I just give a few comments at this time since we're not voting?
Go for it. Knock yourself out.
Okay. All right. Because I would love to see us explore this as a city, and it'll be interesting to see what our timelines might be and what vehicles are available. I've been driving an EV, plug-in hybrid electric vehicle for 5 years now, and it's amazing the savings you get when you are just doing short trips within town and you run in on all electric. And but you do, just because of where we live and some of the distances that we need to travel, occasionally you need that larger range than can be supplied. So it'd be interesting to see an analysis of that on the city vehicles. But I think if we think broader on this, because we are an electric utility and we sell electricity to the public and to traveling people on I-70 and on Highway 82 and people within our community, this is an opportunity for Glenwood Springs to also be its own fueler for its vehicles. So we supply the fuel for that. And I think thinking more broadly, even beyond a vision of transforming our own city fleet, if we think of the electrification of the whole transportation sector going forward, Glenwood Springs is really positioned in a fantastic location on I-70 and the junction with Highway 82 to be a destination for EV vehicles that are traveling on those corridors and want to stop and charge, especially tourists or travelers along I-70, potentially in the future, possibly long haul truckers that are traveling and may need to stop and charge. Things like that could be opportunities for the city for revenue for our electric utilities. So I'd really like to give staff the time to explore this well and look into what our timelines might be, what the opportunities might be, and what the revenue generation capability could be for the city, as well as fuel cost savings and maintenance cost savings on vehicles going forward. Thanks.
Thanks, Shelley. Dr. Voorhees.
Good job, Stefan. And just a quick slice of what Shelley was talking about. I would imagine some of the models would compare the lifetime of an electrical vehicle compared to an ICE, and certainly fewer moving parts with the EV. And so your analysis then would probably take into account that although the initial cost may be somewhat higher, that over the period of years of the use of the vehicle, it's actually somewhat of a bargain. And I'm not sure how you do that, but I just thought I'd confirm that that was part of the work that you might be doing.
Definitely. Yeah, sorry for the jargon. Total cost of ownership is what all the consultants and policy wonks use when referring to that kind of lifetime of a vehicle, and including all costs associated with not only the upfront purchase of the vehicle but the operations. And yeah, Rick and Shelley point out that the savings both from a fuel side, comparing diesel or gas to electrons, yields significant savings even with the price of gas being as low as it is right now. And then on the maintenance and operations savings, city vehicles can be a little bit different, but there is story after story of an electric vehicle owner that's put 100,000 miles on their vehicle, and all they've done is put wind washer or windshield wiper fluid in the vehicle, and that's the only maintenance that these vehicles require. So I think Consumer Reports just came out with a study that showed that on average, EV drivers spend less than 50% on operations and maintenance compared to internal combustion engine drivers.
Wow. Thank you, Stefan.
Definitely.
Very cool. Any other questions or comments? I think as far as I know, three of us on city council have some form of electric vehicles. So we're trying to do our part.
Thanks for leading the charge.
All right. Well, Stefan, thank you very much. I think you've sent some excitement and some support on the city council of moving forward, and we look forward to continuing conversations and seeing what else it takes to become the Go EV city.
Amazing. So for me, in terms of next steps, I think what I would like to do is I would like to send over all of the Go EV City resolutions that we've secured. And so those come from Summit County, Boulder County, Boulder City, County and City of Denver, and then we have a few more pending. And so, the council would be able to review the examples of language that we've put together and think about what might work for the city. And then concurrently, I would maybe like to get with Matthew and try and do a little bit of the more technical analysis and seeing what the true infrastructure costs and requirements would be. And then I think that might be able to move us forward.
Okay.
Does that sound appropriate?
Yeah. Does staff have anything to say about that or have anything to weigh in on? Nope. Okay. Thank you very much, Stefan. And we look forward to continuing the conversation.
Appreciate it. Thanks for the opportunity.
All right. All right. Next item is item number 16, Blake Gate. Who is presenting this? Oh, Steve Davis, did you have something to ask? Sorry, didn't see your hand there.
No, that's all right. It's 9:40 at night, Mountain Time, and I just want to say that it was my motion to open the Blake Gate this year. It was your second, but at this point in time, and with the excellent report from staff that we got in our packet, I'm going to make the recommendation and actually the motion that we go ahead and accept without a presentation staff's recommendation to open the Blake Gate at that time in the future. We've had a number of issues in this town that have caused us to be a little overwhelmed.
I'll second you.
Thank you.
All right, it's been moved and seconded that we accept staff's recommendation as detailed in the report. All those in favor signify by saying aye. Aye. Or raising their hand. Anybody opposed? Motion passes unanimously. Great presentation, Jen Uten. Fantastic. Good on you. All right. Thanks, Steve, for cutting to the chase on that. I think we were all, that was actually a really great report that we were able to read, and that made it very easy. Okay, item number 17, the IGA agreement. Approval with Northwest Cogs for co-located rack space with the 910 Telecom Internet leasing location in Denver, Colorado. Is this Project Thor? Matt? No, You're unmuted, but we cannot hear you. Turn up the volume on your keypad, maybe.
How about now?
Yes.
Sorry, same thing happened. My Zoom went dead as the last time. I just had to finagle very, very quickly, or I would have had comments for Steven, but forget it. We'll deal with that later. So let me fix this real quick. Okay, so we were going to put this on consent agenda, but we thought we'd pull it off just because it's kind of an interesting thing that's happening within broadband, and you guys love broadband. Northwest Cogs has come to us and asked if we would be willing to share some rack space within the data center in Denver, which if you know anything about information and technology, Michael can go through it if you would like to, but basically everything goes through the data center in Denver. It's amazing. Netflix is there, everything happens. But what they've asked us is to co-share some rack space in there, buy a router, put a router in there, which is basically what we were going to do anyhow in a different location. But this way, it allows us to link that router directly to the Thor system that we are a part of. We've invested in that along with many other communities in Western Colorado. And what we'll be able to do is actually provide data and bandwidth to the Thor group at a much reduced rate than what they were already looking at previously. So we'll be able to buy data and sell data. And it's another viable, small but viable revenue option for the broadband department to move forward with in the future. And it also lets us control all of our rates that we will be paying for broadband with. So now we can buy broadband at a very reduced rate from our neighbor in the rack next to us in the data center, basically. And if we don't like their rate, we'll talk to the neighbor in the rack next to us on the other side in the data center. So that's a very brief description. Once again, it is 9:45 at night. If you would like very detailed explanations of it, I'm sure Michael would love to get into all of it. But what we're doing is we're setting up broadband and the Thor partners that we have.
Okay, Steve Davis.
Yeah, that sounds great, Matt. I appreciate your presentation, and I'd like to make a motion to accept your recommendation as stated.
Charlie?
Second.
All right, then moved by Steve, seconded by Charlie. Further conversation? Rick? Nope. Okay, all in favor signify by saying aye or raising your hand. Aye. All opposed. Tony's opposed. Motion carries 6-1. All right. Thank you. Great presentation, Matt. Very comprehensive. Next one, award of bid BD 2020-031 for networking equipment and associated accessories to One Technology Corporation. This you again, Matt?
This is the router that we're going to put into that slot in the data center down in Denver.
Okay, Steve.
Yeah, I thought that was part of my motion earlier, but yeah, I would move to accept that bid.
And Charlie?
Second.
All right. All those in favor signify by saying aye or raise your hand. Aye. All those opposed? All those, Tony, are you opposed? Okay, great. Motion passes 6-1. Next item is the, oh gosh, we're already to the report from city administration. City manager, oh, Tony, you have something to say? Go ahead.
Can we get back to the HPC, or did Gretchen have to go and we're going to continue that? Or could we move to continue that?
Yeah, that's a great question. Is Gretchen around?
I didn't see her.
I didn't either. It's probably okay that she went to
I would
bed.
make a motion. I'm sorry, Charlie. I wish we could get this done, but I just want to make sure we're right. So I'd make a motion just to continue this for 2 weeks to the next meeting.
I'll second.
Thank you.
All those in favor signify by saying aye or raising your hand. Aye. Any opposed? Motion carries unanimously. I'm sorry, Catherine. I'm not letting you do your job. I'm just taking all the votes for you. I'm just totally stealing your thunder.
She has all of her list for voting, can't use them.
I know. All right. City manager's report. Is there any other thing that we need to cover that we didn't get to? Okay. Go ahead, Deborah.
Okay, I'm going to throw it over to Terry to give you the good news on South Midland and Southbridge.
Oh, that's me.
Thank you. Good evening. I just wanted to let you know that South Midland went out to bid yesterday, and we're expecting bids back by October 30th. So hoping that we get a great response from the contractors, and looking forward to beginning that project. Also, South Bridge is on the verge of being signed by CDOT and FHWA. It's in the CDOT region director's office, and then we'll go immediately to FHWA afterwards. So that'll be a huge milestone in the South Bridge project as well. So good news.
Good news for
Good
the
job,
city
Terry.
and awesome news for South Glenwood. So very good. Any other questions about those two projects? Fantastic. Thank you, Terry. Appreciate you hanging out until 9:45 to tell us like those 6 sentences.
Of course.
All right, have a good night.
Yeah, you too.
Deborah, anything else for the good of the order?
I am
On your
talking.
part. Okay.
Thank you.
Carl.
Yeah, no, normally I don't have I try not to take up your time with a report, but I just a couple of things I wanted to mention. One, on that South Midland project, I wanted to say thank you to Richard out of my office, who has worked a ridiculous number of hours to get the right-of-way clearances in place for that project. Two is at a staff level, there was a request by RMR to meet with Deborah and I, and we're going to do that. We always obviously are open to having a conversation, but I just wanted to let council know that that was going to happen. And third, I didn't have an opportunity earlier to express my thanks to Councilor Voorhees for his service. I have had the pleasure of serving with an awful lot of council members, and you each bring something unique and different and great to the table. And so I really genuinely appreciate, and also that Rick we share a little bit of that rural background. And so it always makes me smile when I hear the South Dakota come out in him. So anyway, thanks a lot.
All right. Well, again, Rick, thank you for all the years of service and the countless hours you have dedicated to this town. So we'll miss you, and please let us know when you're coming back, and we'll get you cake as soon as we don't have COVID. All right. Is there anything else good for the good of the order? All right. For the last time, with Dr. Voorhees as a member, meeting adjourned.